You up?
Well, that set me off the edge. Just glad you're back.
When you're ready.
You up?
All right, good morning, and welcome to the Rankin County Board of Supervisors, July the 14th meeting. We thank you for coming out, being interested in our government. We have a room full. I see people that I know, probably most of you. And Rankin County is great because of people like you that care. We're going to get started with our meeting and our agenda. Let me say, because of, this is how thick it is, and people come to have their day in front of us and explain what the issue is. So when you're speaking, please limit it to about 3 minutes, something like that, so that we make sure that everybody gets an opportunity. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask Craig Slay to do our invocation.
Be glad to. Let's pray. Lord God, we always start our meetings by invoking your presence with us here today. Lord, we know that we can't accomplish anything without your power, without your authority, Father, without the way that you paved the way for us to accomplish things here in our community. So, Father, we thank you because you have blessed us so abundantly in the past, and you have expectations out of these men, Lord, as the leaders that you place in authority. I pray that you'll give them what they need so that they do that well. Lord, they need wisdom. They need discernment. They need to be fully informed and to understand the issues that confront them. Lord, I pray that as citizens of this community, we'll be thankful for those not only who lead and who sacrifice so that we can be led well, Father, but also those who protect us every day, who go to work, Lord, to accomplish a task. And sometimes, Lord, they do things that are hard. Sometimes they do things that are very difficult, put themselves at personal risk. Lord, may those acts of service not be forgotten. Help us to never take that for granted. In Christ's name, amen.
Thank you, Craig. All right, we'll go to our public comments section. On our list, got a pretty good list. Mr. Kirsch, I talked to you earlier. You're not needing to address the board today, are you? Okay, thank you. Dylan Drake, we worked that out. Okay, Dylan Drake had been here and he is on his way. Elena Henderson, come tell us what we have.
Good morning.
How are you?
How are y'all?
Good.
Mine is with the house next door. It had sold, and I was excited it was being sold, but then I found out it's an Airbnb.
Okay, tell us where you live, if you don't mind.
211 McLaurin.
Okay.
Over by the reservoir, right off Old Fannin.
Okay.
So, and the thing is with, I didn't know if it was in the zoning, so I called and asked, and they said, no, an Airbnb cannot be in a residential area.
Okay.
And I said, well, it is one next door. And they just kept saying, well, no, and I'm like, well, what's gonna be done about it? Nothing's been done about it.
Okay.
So I'm just concerned with that, because people, it is kind of a nuisance. People are in and out every 3 and 4 days.
Sure.
And I feel like in a neighborhood, it should be family homes, young couples, you know, just out
What
of
about
college or
old
something.
people like me?
Yeah, old people like you.
Okay.
We have those there too, but just kind of concerned with that, and I feel like I'm kind of one that looks at the overall picture, like it's keeping people out of hotels, like a lot of younger people are having difficult places to rent. I see every day on Facebook, like people begging to rent, like there's nothing to rent, because I feel like it's stuff like this.
Have you communicated with the community development?
Yeah. Well,
Steve, let me address that. This is the COVID's conditional use application that's already on the
Okay.
agenda
Oh,
for us.
okay, okay.
So I think Ms. Henderson we'll need to wait and speak when we have that actual public hearing on the request.
Okay. We are involved.
We may got you up too soon to speak. But you've already spoken now, so we got you. That'll be all right.
All right, I'll try to.
Nah, you can, no, have a seat and enjoy the festivities.
The rest of the show.
Yeah.
David Querin? We're good? Okay, thank you. Stephen Kennedy?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
You don't have to sigh before you say my name. I understand. First of all, we submitted an appeal application July 6th. Did everybody get a copy of it? We have copies if you don't have one.
I think this is what's on our desk, right? Is this what you're talking about?
That's it, cool. I can give you the 3-minute version if you like.
Please.
All right, so my wife and I own 10 acres of land in District 4, Mr. Gaines' district. It's currently zoned A1. On June 12th this year, we submitted a conditional use application for a medical cannabis cultivation facility. We submitted that to Ms. Lawrence. We submitted all other application materials and paid the application fee at that time. I think that's our application on her desk, or on that desk right there. On June 22nd, we followed up with Ms. Lawrence. She informed us the county attorney instructed her not to move forward with her application due to his interpretation of deed restriction number 1. We then contacted the seller's agent and the closing attorney to get their interpretation of deed restriction number 1. And in common terms, the deed restriction number 1 limits the number of dwellings and the size of a dwelling if a dwelling is built. Now, this is per the closing attorney's interpretation to us. The restriction does not include a reference to use or conditional use of our property, which is what our application is for. So we're here to appeal the interpretation that is preventing our application from moving forward and asking that Ms. Lawrence be allowed to proceed with our application.
Okay.
All right.
Is that on the docket? Or is it?
No, sir, it's not.
Well-
I'll be glad to step in and explain. First, there has been no decision by the board. As you know, the application hasn't come before the board. It hasn't processed through, and there are a number of reasons why that is. One is the deed restriction that the gentleman has just referred to. That is an issue that I am interested in delving into and giving some further consideration of. But that's not the only issue that we have with respect to the application. The primary issue that we have is that they are asking for a conditional use for an accessory building. There is no primary building on the property. You don't have an accessory building until there is a primary building for it to be accessory to. And so the proposal to construct initially the accessory structure is out of place. It doesn't fit within our context. We have no idea what the primary structure is going to be, whether it's going to fit. And so the anticipation, the issue with deed restriction 1 is that at some point it could be decided, it hasn't been decided, but it could be decided that the building that is under consideration would become the primary residence of the property. And so that implicates whether or not what is happening with that property is a single-family dwelling or something else. And so we want to be clear that there's some issues here. The second thing, in addition to the accessory structure, in addition to the deed restriction, those things are kind of coupled together. In addition to that, there is another deed restriction that references, I'll just read straight off of the deed restriction, this an exhibit to the deed. No noxious or offensive activity shall be permitted or conducted on any of the property. And so the proposed use is a medical cannabis grow facility. We know, because we've had occasion to look at these, that they generate odor, significant odor, and there are even requirements at state level that there be some level of odor control, mechanisms of odor control. So those things are necessary for us to consider when there is a private deed restriction that says no noxious odor. It's not just, is it well controlled? Can it be contained to a limited area? The deed restriction itself says no noxious odors. And so we want to give credence to how this is drafted and crafted. It's just simply not time for us under the current context, it's not time for us to come back and look at this. There's some work to be done to address those two issues. And then, of course, there's a third, and some of this, admittedly, I need to really start focusing on, because this is the first opportunity that we've had to deal with a situation where an applicant for a medical cannabis facility has a criminal past. And how that is implicated through the state regulations and then what that does for us becomes a real challenge. Mr. Kennedy was convicted of embezzlement in 2011. Looks like there was a pretrial diversion on that. That may or may not be a felony. I don't know how that's treated. I hadn't looked into it. And then Mr. Kennedy was charged with a felony, possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute, count 1. He pled to LIO of possession, manufacture of controlled substance, count 2. And that occurred on March the 16th. He was sentenced on March the 16th of 2015. Sentenced to 20 years, 17 suspended, 3 years of house arrest, 5 years of supervised probation. I'm assuming that would have terminated, that supervised probation period would have terminated at some point this year, it appears to me, if it played out the way that it's supposed to. But as I appreciate it, under the state regs, there is a process by which those who've been convicted of felonies are able to go forward with a licensure through the state for these facilities. But that's a process that I'm not familiar with, and I think it's terribly premature for us to be asked to look at a local, county level conditional use or licensure possibility where there clearly are state inquiries that need to occur before we get to our piece. And so I think we'd be remiss to try to undertake this. This is the very situation that we got into with the prior conditional use application, you guys recall. Mm-hmm. We had a grow facility application, and what we found out is that as we moved through that process to consider that particular conditional use, we found out that the state was contemporaneously conducting its review. And that had not been completed by the time that we undertook it. We were told in the hearing, oh, everything's good with the state. Y'all remember that?
Yes.
And we said, yeah, let's go ahead and we'll do what we need to do. And thank the Lord, one of your conditions was there must be full compliance with the state regs. You recall that. And unfortunately, that gentleman was not able to get into full compliance. To my knowledge, is still not in full compliance with the state. And so I don't think, and we said after that, this board said, we are just not going to take these things up until we know that we are good with the state. And I think that's where we have to be positioned, gentlemen. We just can't take these things, and that's why you haven't heard anything about this up to this point.
Thank you.
Can I
Thank
speak
you.
to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so to my background, absolutely true. However, I've already applied for my license to work in a medical cannabis cultivation
Through the state?
industry
Through
through
the
the state,
state?
and I've already been approved. I've been approved for probably 90 days or so, my wife as well. So we've already cleared that hurdle, so we know we can move forward at this point.
Is that to work in a facility or to
work-
own your facility?
It starts with the application, the portal, the Department of Health portal. You can register to be a worker, and that was my litmus test, as Mr. Slade pointed out, to make sure that I'd be qualified and I wouldn't have any further hurdles to overcome. If I did, then I would have stopped at that point. And there is a process, to actually have my charges expunged, which I'm waiting for that term to expire. I've already paid all my time, my dues. I've already paid the price for my criminal activities. I did it wrong the first time. I'm trying to do it right this time. As far as the odor mitigation, we partnered with Ms. Lawrence. We had a meeting with her. She shared with us the proposed cannabis cultivation, the next steps, the 1,000-foot from any occupied dwelling. We have an odor mitigation plan that we've submitted. I actually submitted additional information to her from other odor mitigation plans, understanding the previous gentleman's challenges. Again, we're not the previous gentleman. This is our case, this is our facility, and we're trying to do things right and do things for the best interest of ourselves as well as the public and the county.
I would like to speak on the noxious activity. It actually does not specifically say odor. It says noxious or offensive activity, and that's also up for interpretation. And as my understanding, the only people that can hold us to that would be the owners of the property if they file a complaint that there's a noxious activity or, some kind of other noxious activity or offensive activity. That's up for interpretation of what's noxious.
Are y'all
activity.
planning on living on this site
We
that's
don't
10
know,
acres
just
or?
Possibly, but we are starting with the facility. We are approved for our construction loan, like we've submitted everything of how the building will look, meets all of your expectations, your future proposed plan of expectations, everything. The setback lines are in there of how far to be back, how far to be away from anybody else. Everything is in that packet, but you haven't been able to review it because it's been put on pause due to what we were told, deed restriction #1. That's all that has been communicated to us at this time. So the rest of this has not been communicated, although we did request.
Gentlemen, I'm not gonna get ahead of you guys. Y'all are the decision makers, but it occurs to me that if we're gonna try to apply for an accessory structure, we need a primary structure on the site to which the building for the application is accessory. That's how we do things. That's how it's defined under our zoning ordinance. So as for the noxious activity, yeah, the folks that are parties to the deed have something to say about whether or not activities are noxious or not. We don't
There
typically
are
get in the
other-
middle of that.
This is a subdivision that's been able to remain ag because we made a special deal to where 10 acres or more, most people with 10 acres are gonna have a horse or whatever. But it is isn't it sectioned off in other 10-acre blocks and
We
stuff?
have not been
Not
made
to
aware
our
of the
knowledge.
plating.
The
Based on-
land is for sale, there's a 50-acre parcel for sale behind us that we're under the impression will remain zoned A1. All the surrounding property is zoned A1 to our knowledge right now.
Sand Hill.
Same here, right?
All right, we need to move along.
Sure.
We will handle this carefully. I'm sure that Craig will keep you abreast of where we're at, and you also keep him up to date of where you are.
Yeah, the application and the check for the fee is sitting on Miss Renee's table over there, and so the Kennedys are welcome to take that with them. Until we solve the riddle of the accessory structure and where the primary structure is and how that's gonna be oriented on the property, until we get to that situation, I don't think that we have anything to address, Steve. And secondarily to that, I think they should be about the business at this point of clarifying, is the licensure through the state, is that a conditional licensure? Or is that a complete, full licensure based upon the planned facility? Is that where we are? I dare say that we're not there. And so, that needs to be addressed. Seems to me that it'd be a simple thing to go back to the folks that prepared the deed and do an amended deed that either removes the reference to noxious activities or further clarifies that so that becomes not an issue for us when it is appropriate for us to move forward.
Okay. All
So-
right, thank you.
I do not understand the accessory building because our plans never indicated that there was any other plans to build another structure.
That-
It's always on the table. We understand. We currently live in the district, or we've lived in our house for under 2 years. So again, we have a very nice home in a very nice area.
Sure.
We like the area. It's convenient to our location. So again, our current plan is, and the dwelling, it's not a dwelling, let me clarify that. There's no internal plans to include a restroom, a bedroom, a closet, a kitchen, anything along those lines, so. it's
So if I may,
truly
gentlemen,
a
the deed
square.
restriction, I want to read that to you so that it's clear in your mind. Why is the lawyer bringing this up? Only one single-family dwelling may be constructed on any one lot.
And I would like to say that.
This will not be a dwelling. You heard that. This will not be a dwelling, all right? So that, to me, is an ambiguity. Did the grantor of this deed intend that the only thing that's going to be put on any lot that is sold is a dwelling, one single-family dwelling? Or did that individual intend that You can have a single-family dwelling or an accessory structure or whatever. You can have a barn, right? But not any other facility. I don't know. I wasn't a party to this.
Would they have
I
a
didn't
legal-
draft this.
Would they have a legal case if the deed restricting right there, could they take them back to court, get their money back if they already purchased this 10 acres?
I don't know.
If I can
I don't know,
explain
Brad.
that, when we worked our deal out with the listing agent, our listing agent and their listing agent, we have the text messages where they said that there was no mobile homes, the size of the house, if a house is built, and there was no, hogs and roosters
Swine.
allowed. And so they never said you must build a house or anything like that. This was that you could not have a mobile home.
Yeah.
So there's
So
no.
the only thing that counts is what's in the land records. I'm reading from what is in the land records, and it very clearly indicates one single-family dwelling may be constructed on any one lot. I didn't draft it.
Y'all do get it amended, then come back, we'll go from there. We need to move on though.
What, so just for clarity, remove deed restriction number 1 and remove the noxious and offensive activities? Okay.
And what kind of timeline and who should we be communicating with?
Probably Ms. Lawrence over here in our building
Yes.
department, I would suggest, and she'll be in touch with Mr. Slay at the same time, kind of the process it goes through, once that's right.
Yeah, the application should come when we have something that's complete from the state that indicates that this is not a conditional license.
I'm
but that
sorry,
this is
the
a
point is,
legitimate license.
you cannot move forward with the state until the county approves.
Correct.
The county must approve,
That's
so
correct.
it's a preceding task to the state
That's
application.
correct.
And I'm sure that the state can communicate that to us. They can get us comfortable. These folks have cleared all of the hurdles that they are capable of clearing up to this point. As long as the state is communicating that, I want that on letterhead from the State Department of Health, indicating it's now time. The state has finished its review, is satisfied, and y'all are ready to move forward with your part of the process, and then we will pick it back up from there. If I can get that and get coordinated on that, get the deed restrictions straightened out, figure out this issue about whether or not an accessory structure can be constructed before a dwelling is constructed. We get all that sorted out for you guys, I think we can move forward with the
I need to
consideration.
ask another question then. The state won't come out with the Department of Health for the septic system until we have an address. And we cannot get an address unless we submit the plans for a dwelling, according to the way it's being restricted right now. So we can't proceed with the state without an address. So there's a lot of things dependent on us at least being able to move forward with our site plan requirements and with our application in order for us to be able to get an address to start the process. We have our paperwork ready for the state.
I think
We've been
maybe,
in contact with the state.
maybe we need to be focusing on a dwelling instead of an accessory building.
It's
Yeah.
not required on our
I'm
property.
sorry. I do not understand, this will be my last comment, and then we'll let it go. I do not understand how we move forward with the state when it's already in policy of the order of application, which clearly states the county must give us approval first before it's one of the required documents.
Yeah, the
with
state wants us to be in the box, and we don't want to be in the box. We're not going to be in the box. And so somebody at the state legislature may have to fix that. We are not moving forward until the state plays ball, until the state takes responsibility for what the state legislature told the state they had responsibility for. Not going to do it.
All right, Board, we're asking
Let's
for your
move-
help here.
Let's
Thank you.
move on. Thank you very much. Next on our list here of conditional use, Debbie and Jeff Coots. Did I butcher that? Okay.
Yeah, that.
Oh, okay,
Steve,
never
that's
mind. You're
up.
coming later. I see. David
Steve-
Root, sir?
Steve, if I may, if you're here for the Michael Hodge conditional use permit, or the Jeffrey and Deborah Kovitz conditional use permit, or the Old South excavation conditional use permit, we are getting to those later. You don't have to speak in public
Okay.
comment. So this is anybody here to speak in public comment other than for those that I just called out? Anybody?
David Ruth raised his hand.
David?
I don't know if Old South, I don't know what the.
You have time to speak during public,
That's the Rankin Road.
public
Rankin
hearing.
Road is-
Yeah. Rankin Road.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. That's Old South.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other public comments other than what Craig has addressed? All right, we'll move on to old business.
I make a
we have
motion, yeah, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, Daniel makes a motion to approve the old business. Jared seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Gaines, a point of order on that. If I can ask Mr. Calhoun to amend his order, I'm sorry, his motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 4, which we will take up in executive session. Mr. Calhoun, you willing to do that?
I'll make that motion to amend.
Yeah. Ms. Morrison, are you willing to second the
I'll
amended
second.
motion?
Okay.
Thank you.
Brad makes a motion.
To amend,
Well,
except,
His amended motion, Steve, is the motion to approve consent with the exception of paragraph 4.
okay, I'll just go with that. Brad makes that motion. Jared
second.
seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, Mike Harrison, road manager. Good morning.
Good morning.
We have a request for approval of Center Point Energy permit for natural gas line across Holly Bush Place installed between Holly Bush Road and Berry Lane, District 4.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve. All right, I made a motion, Jared
second,
seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Motion passes.
B, I've got a request of approval of Comcast permit to be buried and installed on Greenfield Station Parkway between Greenfield Station and Whitfield Court, District 3 property.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, Brad
Second.
makes a motion to approve, Jared seconds it.
Good luck.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mike
I
Harrison.
wish you the best. I'm cheering
I
for
mean,
you.
what do you want me to do? I know.
I shouldn't really just start sweating when I see like Comcast and then all those fiber installations over there. But then when it says District 3, my heart goes back down. You know, my rate lowers a little.
Morning. Mr. President, the first item we have is on Fallen Oak subdivision. We're Fallen Oak Phase 4. We're recommending approval of that final plat. I will note there's no letter of credit there. All these lots border on the road that was platted in Phase 3. They put up the letter of credit in Phase 3, so these are just lots on the opposite side of the street, so there's no letter of credit there. We're recommending approval of that plat.
Tim, is this one, do we have a drawing of the retention pond
That-
that serves?
That's 4A.
Okay.
4A is, will be the
Okay,
detention
okay.
pond, yes, sir.
All right, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I made a motion, Daniel seconds. Anyone, or any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Item B, Mr. President, is what you just referenced. This is Fallen Oak Phase 4A. We're recommending approval of that final plat. That is the detention pond for Fallen Oak. It actually touches Phase 2, but the developer owned some more property that touched Phase 4, and he wasn't sure if he was gonna put a big lake in there and include it as part of the subdivision, so he wasn't sure if the original detention pond was gonna be able to be removed or not. Now he's made the decision that the other property is not included in 4, so we needed to get this detention pond platted as part of the subdivision. So 4A is just the detention pond that,
All right.
part of the subdivision.
Yeah, and they've got a 30-foot access easement that's gonna
Correct.
be tendered to the HOA for purposes of maintenance
Maintenance.
access. Is that right, Tim?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
They actually have access from Phase 2 already through an easement, and they're giving, in this plat, an easement from Mount Helm Road.
Just a question, how large is this retention pond?
Steve, I'm not sure how
1
many
acre,
acres it
2
is.
acres, 3 acres?
I'm gonna say it's probably an acre and a half. That's just, the area is much larger than that, but I think the pond itself is gonna be, that's a guess, though.
We live in this subdivision.
30 seconds. If you
Sure.
just,
What we were told, the HOA voted on it, and the HO rejected any maintenance of the retention pond or anything like that. And it was presented that it was 17 acres. It was originally platted for a 27-acre pond.
He is correct that in saying that that was the other
That was the
property
lake.
that the developer had,
Yeah.
that he was building a lake on.
And that's why they're
And-
not
And he
having
put
it.
that in front of the HOA, and they didn't want that lake. This
So
is
he
a
pulled it
detention
out.
pond that they have to have,
We-
to meet the.
yeah, but there's no
requirements.
option. It's, and I think what you said is what he addressed at first, that there were plans of a larger lake, but it's been pulled.
Steve, when we get a final plat, we'll make sure that the wording is clear. It's either gonna be the HOA's responsibility or it's gonna be the developer's responsibility. Ain't nothing on that plat that will say that Rankin County is responsible for any of that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Did we have, I make the motion to approve it, that's on, 4A.
Yep, second.
All right, I made a motion, Daniel seconds it. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
Item C, Mr. President, is on our Gunner Road project. We're recommending approval of payout number 8 from Hemp Hill Construction for work done on Gunner Road in the amount of $241,804.79, and authority to issue that check. That's for work through the end of May. So.
Is that the asphalt work?
It does not include the asphalt work. The majority of the asphalt work's done. Hopefully they'll finish the asphalt today. But this payout does not include the asphalt work. So there's about.
So are they caught up to?
There's still about $900,000 worth of money out there, or a little better than 900, which is the asphalt and the final seeding and cleanup and those kind of things. So a lot of money left. We still don't have anything from the contractor on their time, but we're.
I mean, what do you think they are? Just
They're still, they're, according to our calculations, about 56 days out of the time.
No, I mean, like how far along from completion?
Oh,
I mean, like
they're-
85% completion?
Probably, after today, 90 to 95, yeah.
Almost done.
Yeah, they just, like I said, it's cleanup and grassing and those kind of things now.
Once the weather got clear, they rolled. They've even worked out there on some weekends.
Good.
Okay.
All right, do I have a motion? Jay makes a motion. I have a second. Jared seconds it. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Hey, since we were here, if we can mention this, I may have gotten confused on some of this on the email stuff we saw on the Thomasville project. Since we got Timmy up here, that way you don't have to come back up. What is it? What did we decide on that? I know there was an email going on about
They're
trying to
moving
move the email came out, said that we were wanting to delay it or move it to some other time frame to Brad's area or something.
Yeah, that
that
didn't
going
work
on?
out. We thought they might have had some components for another bridge that they didn't have, and they were confused on the LSBP project on which components they had, so they couldn't move. They would have had to go to Kirsch, which is where we don't want to go right now. So they're at Thomasville.
So they're working there,
Yes,
right?
they are working at
Okay.
Thomasville now. They're taking out a bridge.
So I
Actually,
knew we
they
had the
had-
email go out. I never heard a follow back up on what was. I mean, I know you asked what do we want to do, and I didn't want to move anything. I know Brad didn't for sure, but
Well,
So
actually,
we're
didn't
there?
know the whole story.
I just read the email.
I
That's
know,
all
I know,
did.
I know. But once it got crossed up like that, I didn't even worry about saying anything because the crane was not put together. The crane was not put together. They did have somewhere else to go, but it would not have been in Rankin County. It was a small job somewhere else. They could have done that, but rather try to explain all that, I just left it alone. So now you just got to. It is creating a terrible problem there because it's going to be closed for a period of time. But
Well,
I couldn't
anticipating
relay that
8
on to
weeks?
anybody.
Yes, sir.
6 weeks they probably done.
We would hope so, yeah.
All right, we took a vote, but I did not ask for any nays. All right, no nays, motion passes.
I was just trying to steal Timmy while we had him. You know?
Well, he may have to come
That's a
back.
lot of steps between there and that back
All right,
chair.
Mr. Cross, I'll be right back here if you need.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
On-
Craig,
going far.
Thank you.
Craig Slade.
I'll make a motion to approve A, B, and C and set those hearings for August the 3rd.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay. I'll second.
All right, I have a motion by Brad to approve A, B, and C, which are in 3 different districts.
Those are
These are public
nuisance
hearing.
considerations. Yes, sir.
Nuisance.
That's correct.
Considerations and anyhow. So we Have a motion by Brad, a second by Jared. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Those are set.
Mr. President, item D is the public hearing on the Michael Hodge conditional use permit at 136 Bella Fleur Drive. This is a District 1 property. I'm going to open that public hearing. I'll ask that Mr. Hodge or anyone on his behalf be prepared to address the board and any individuals who intend to speak concerning that particular request or should be prepared to come forward to address the board. Mr. Hodge is seeking a conditional use permit to construct a 1,200-foot home with metal siding at 136 Bella Fleur Drive, a 3.18 acre parcel, property zone RE1. A conditional use permit was approved in August of 2021 for a 3,000 square foot home with a metal exterior. Mr. Hodge plans to live in the 1,200 square foot structure and begin construction on the 3,000 square foot home. The 1,200 square foot area will be converted to the attached garage. The notice of hearing was published, the property was posted. The Office of Community Development received one call in opposition. The caller is concerned about the maintenance of the property. The staff has conditions that we would like to address to the board. At this time, I'll call for anyone that is here to speak in opposition to the Michael Hodge conditional use permit. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition on that matter? Unless the board has questions of Mr. Hodge, let me walk you guys through. Whenever we consider conditional use applications, there are a number of considerations that are required for the board to consider. I'll read these at this point, and these conditions that I address here in the Hodge matter will also apply to the other matters that are before us today, and so I won't read them again. Okay? Typically in these conditional use applications, the board is required to consider ingress and egress to the property, all street parking or loading areas, refuse and service areas, utilities with reference to location, availability, compatibility, screening and buffering with reference to type, dimension, or character, any kind of required setbacks or required open spaces, general compatibility with the adjacent properties. That's always an important consideration. And any other provision deemed necessary by the Board of Supervisors. Mr. President, with your permission, I'll read through the conditions for the Hodge permit. Property shall not be further subdivided without the expressed permission of the Rankin County Board of Supervisors. No mobile homes, manufactured housing, or modular homes shall be located on this property. The 1,200-foot structure is a temporary dwelling. Temporary dwelling. He's going to live there. He's going to have a bathroom, kitchen, bedroom. Okay, so it's a temporary.
It is not a manufactured home. He's going to build it.
Yes, sir.
Like a barn house.
This is a stick built, and then it will be the attached garage for the primary structure. Okay. But this is the key consideration. He is going to live there to provide a place for him to live as he is constructing the actual primary dwelling. Okay, that's an important consideration. Permanent dwelling containing a minimum heated and cooled area of 2,200 square feet must be constructed within 3 years of the date that the conditional use permit is approved. And so that date would be July 14, 2026. Okay, so there's a drop dead date there on the conditional use application. The primary structure has got to be complete and occupied. When the permanent dwelling is completed, a change of occupancy will be required to remove the living quarters and convert the 1,200-foot structure to the attached garage. Okay? Property must be maintained in a clean and orderly manner. And then this is important given the phone call that was received by the Community Development Office concerning the prior conditions at this property that have had to be addressed by the Community Development Office. The conditional use granted shall be withdrawn by the Board of Supervisors in the event that the Board of Supervisors makes a finding in the future that the condition of the subject property constitutes a public nuisance pursuant to Mississippi Code annotated 195105 or pursuant to those provisions of the International Property Maintenance Code made applicable to real property in Rankin County. That would be a condition. Okay? So those are the conditions. At this time, it'd be appropriate to take action.
Well, I need to make sure he understands. He's sitting there, Michael understands, and he's okay with this. Huh? Well, you might need to know,
So let me be clear. In the past, folks in the neighborhood have called Renee's office and have complained about the conditions of Mr. Hodges' property. They have suggested, and it has been evaluated as a nuisance property under county regs and under state law.
has already been that.
Absolutely. And we do not want to have to address nuisance property complaints anymore. The property
You wanna
needs to
come up,
stay-
you wanna come up here?
Yeah, because we just bought the property, so.
Well, you're gonna have to come up here, we can hear.
Explain what y'all done and.
Yeah, explain, we're just trying to get it cleared up, that's all.
My father-in-law owned the
But
property.
first, what you need to do is give your name and address.
Michael Hyde, 128 Bella Florida.
Okay.
All right.
We just bought the property from my father-in-law, so the previous complaint had to have been when he owned it.
Wait, you didn't own the property?
We've
Where were
owned
you-
it, my wife, how long have we owned it? I thought we just bought it like a year ago.
We're gonna say, because you got a permit to build a 3,000, or you requested 3,000 square foot home sometime back.
Yeah.
You had to have owned it then, I guess what they're saying,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, did you hear all the conditions?
So the guy that's complaining?
No, I just mean all the conditions.
Conditions on,
On the
Oh, yeah,
conditions,
I'm
yeah.
fine with the conditions.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure you heard them.
No, that's
Yeah, I
our,
didn't
that's
want
our
to be a
plan,
surprise to you,
so
okay.
that's not a problem.
All right, and it doesn't matter about really, I'm gonna kind of cut through that, who's complaining.
Yeah.
What you need to do is, I think what they're asking would help you if you keep your place in the same cosmetic conditions as the surrounding. And if you do that, I don't think you have a problem.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's kind of hard to put stuff when you have nothing to, we've already tried to build something, and they said we have to have a permanent dwelling first, so we have nowhere to put stuff right now. I own several businesses, and stuff's just out there.
Well, I think that's,
And that's the
I
problem.
think that's where the problem, I mean, I'm trying to help you here now. I think that's where the problem is. If you don't have somewhere to store it, you probably don't need to be storing it there. So obviously that's what's triggering the continual conditional, nuisance complaint. And we're trying to help you there some way, because that's not gonna go away. And if you go, well, this is stuff I have to have piled up out here, they gotta understand
Like
that.
enclosed trailers, I mean, that's why we bought land, put enclosed trailers.
Huh?
It's just enclosed trailers, like travel trailers.
I haven't seen it, so I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just going by what we're hearing, I haven't seen it.
But just to make life easy on you and your wife going forward, that's gonna be a condition, is that everything's just gonna be cut and maintained. So you don't have to hear from us again.
Yep, I cut every 2 weeks. I don't cut every week. I cut every
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
that's fine.
I just wanna make sure you were here, I wasn't sure if you could hear everything that he was saying.
Yeah, I don't understand attorneys all that well, but
He can make it pretty loud.
anything else?
Is there any other questions you have? Craig? Is there anything,
I'm sorry.
is there anything,
Well, it would just be confusing, Jared. if I- Yeah, so, just to wrap it up, Jared, I think what we're trying to get to here is, let's be neighborly. Let's be as neighborly as we possibly can be. And we just need to make sure that we have a way to assign accountability in the event that the property gets out of shape so bad that we have to effectively take a nuisance consideration on the property. I don't know why we would want to continue to permit, because, this workaround of our zoning to allow for a temporary dwelling. And then, so we've already had that conversation earlier today. They're helped by the fact that they're going to live in the temporary structure. It's a dwelling. It's a dwelling on the property. And then there will be another dwelling, and that will be relegated to an attached garage. So we have mechanisms to deal with that when people want to live on the property and then build a permanent dwelling. We can do that.
so he's just gonna add on to what's there, basically?
Yeah, it seems to me
builds.
that it's gonna end up being a deal where we're just helping them out with the staging of the construction of the home and giving them a little bit of time to be able to get that done. Everybody understands that. But we've got to get on top of this condition of the property issue. We've got to keep it clean.
When was the last time was before us? Do you know, Ms. Renee?
Okay, so I think that he
It wasn't this, actually this address, yeah.
This
Is-
is just a vacant lot right now, and the day we were there, it was cut.
Is it residential? I mean, it's zoned residential?
Yes, sir, R1, that's correct.
And the commercial trailers are being parked there?
Yeah, well, I don't know if we
Or-
really
or he's
are
asking-
clear about
asking
exactly
if
what that
they can
is.
be
Yeah,
parked there.
we need to be really careful, you know, under our zoning ordinance, under our land use regulations, and I'll say this for Mr. Hodges' benefit. We have to be very careful about being accused at some point of operating a commercial business out of a residential zone. That's not a nuisance consideration, that's a zoning violation. And so it's both, actually. It's both a nuisance and a zoning matter, but it really ramps it up big time when we go farther and we create or allow a zoning violation to occur. That triggers potential criminal stuff.
But if he's got like a work truck and a work pull-behind trailer and sleeping there and comes in the afternoon, he can park it there.
Yes,
and-
sir.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Brad, what we're trying to stay on top of is things where we're conducting business out of the residential property. We've seen this before.
I think he's just living.
You know, landscape guys, you know, and they're staging debris inside of a residential
Yeah.
subdivision. I mean, that's just a no-no.
Okay.
You know, they got, not just the owner's individual work truck or trailer, but we're literally parking an entourage of work vehicles inside of a residential structure. That's where everybody ends the day kind of stuff. We've seen that kind of thing before, and we can't allow that. That's commercial activity, commercial operations, and being conducted in a residential zone, and so we have to stay on top of that. We have zones that are appropriate for that. They're called commercial.
Let's,
I think he understands all the conditions. He said he got that. You got all that.
Yep, it's all documented, and his
All right.
permit will contain all of those
Well,
conditions.
I make a motion to approve, you know, under those conditions, if you're okay with them. Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion by Jared to approve, second by Brad. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
The next consideration, gentlemen, is the public hearing on the Jeffrey and Deborah Kovitz conditional use permit at 209 McLaurin Drive, District 5. We'll open that public hearing. I'll ask Mr. and Ms. Kovitz to be prepared to come forward and address the board. Anyone to speak in opposition on that matter should be prepared to speak after the Kovitzes speak. Jeff and Jebby Kovitz are seeking a conditional use permit to operate a bed and breakfast at 209 McLaurin Drive, Barnett Bend 3. Property zoned R1B. Bed and breakfast inns. Bed and breakfast inns are listed as a conditional use permit in R1B district. Okay, I want to make that clear. If it meets the definition of a bed and breakfast as set forth in our zoning, it is allowed in an R1B as a conditional use. Okay? Mr. and Ms. Kovitz purchased the home as a vacation home. They plan to stay in the home once a month when they visit their daughter who lives in Canton. The rest of the time, they plan to continue to rent the home out as a short-term rental bed and breakfast. The hearing notice was published and property was posted. Community Development has received several calls in opposition on this matter. Neighbors are concerned about people coming in and out of the neighborhood and an increase in traffic. I'm going to violate my own self-imposed rule. I want to go back over what we consider in a conditional use application one more time with you guys, because it may be applicable here. Whenever we have a conditional use application that's presented to us, there are about 8 different factors that we typically look at. Most of the time, not all of them apply. In this case, many of these may apply. Ingress and egress to the property and the proposed structures with particular reference to vehicular and pedestrian safety and convenience, traffic flow and control, and access in case of fire or catastrophe. Off-street parking and loading areas, those considerations. Refuse and service areas, that could be implicated here. Utility location, I don't think that applies. Screening and buffering with reference to type, dimensions, character. Required setbacks, required open spaces, general compatibility with adjacent properties or other property in the district, and then any other provision deemed necessary by the board. Okay? So at this time, I'll ask Mr. and Ms. Kovitz to come forward and address the board with their request. There are a number of proposed conditions that the staff would have in the event that the board decides to move forward.
morning.
Hey, good morning. Okay, as Mr. Slade mentioned, we did buy the home as a vacation home to be there once a month, maybe once every other month to see our granddaughter and our kids up in Canton. We did send, last time we talked, about a month ago, we did talk about, there was a couple of questions that y'all had, and we went ahead and said, hey, if we have a short-term rental here, here's how we actually take care of the short-term rental, whether it be for traffic, security, how the guests are vetted. We sent something to the Board of Supervisors to actually look at about a week ago. Don't know if you guys had it or not. We didn't print copies, but we can make sure you have copies of that, of how we handle all the potential concerns that somebody in the neighborhood might have. Additionally, we have met all of the neighbors, the neighbor behind us, the neighbor next to us, and Delaney. We met her as well and talked to them, and we have at least 2 of the neighbors have no concerns whatsoever. We talked to Delaney a little bit, kind of walked through what we were doing. There was a couple of concerns she brought up that we believe we can address as well, and we'd be happy to, and are happy to do that.
I have a letter from another neighbor, if you'll allow me to read it real quick. They weren't able to be here.
And we can send that to you as well.
Can I read it?
Yeah, absolutely.
How long is it? If it's-
1 minute,
Probably
it'll
a
take.
minute.
Okay, all right.
To whom it may concern, we are owners of a neighboring house and to the home in question on McLaurin and Barnett Bend 3. We have lived in this home for 5.5 years and have not noticed any changes in traffic flow throughout the neighborhood because of the home now being an Airbnb. It has been the same since the previous owners were renting it out. The house from the outside is well kept and there are never any loud noises coming from the property. We also haven't witnessed any unusual activity or suspicious people while the house is being occupied. The owners even fixed some broken fence boards that are along our backyard behind them. To our knowledge and based on what we have seen on social media, the person complaining is just being overly particular. Most of the homes in Barnett Bend neighborhoods are rentals owned by local people and big companies. We don't see how this is any different from operating an Airbnb. Stopping someone from operating an Airbnb in a neighborhood that's out of city limits with no HOA is absurd. This is all her words, not ours. We hope that by speaking up, that will help shed some light on the unfortunate situation happening to the homeowners of the Airbnb property. And this is Tori McClurdy and Elena Bloom, and we did not ask her to do this.
Correct.
What is
Ladies,
their
we just met them.
address?
I'm sorry?
What is the address of the writer?
They're right behind our house. I don't know. I don't think they put it on here.
I can tell you in just a minute.
That's okay. If
We
it's
have
we
right.
can
it
pass it
written
on with
down.
the email. We do want to
Okay.
pass this on to you as well.
What you'll want to do is to email that to Ms. Renee, and she'll make it a part of the record of this hearing.
Okay. And in terms of, I'm going to address the traffic concerns.
608 Sandpiper,
Oh.
sorry.
608 Sandpiper.
It's right
Good job,
behind
good.
us.
Our understanding, well, for one, the house has typically been occupied, you know, we have records of that probably 50 to 60% of the time. Additionally, our rules include only 4 cars parked there, no parking on the street. Everybody that we've seen, we monitor the house actually 24/7. We have outdoor cameras to see who's coming and going, to make sure that the guests that are coming, that are registered with us, are actually the people that are coming into the house. And typically, we've only seen 1 or 2 cars, so we're trying to really understand where the traffic issues, concerns are there. You know, if somebody was there as a long-term renter or a homeowner, they're gonna have anywhere from 2 to 4 cars there. There's plenty of driveway space for actually almost 6 cars, so.
And the home is occupied 58.7% of the time. So the
That's our
other
average.
42 whatever percent, there's nobody.
What
coming
is
and
the
going.
average length of stay?
Our minimum stay is 2 days, but typically anywhere from 3 to, in fact, we have a family right now that their home is, they had a lot of water damage. They're there for 3 weeks. So we have anywhere from that to, could be 3 or 4 weeks, depending on that. I know we have a family that's coming, that's actually gonna be moving in the area, that they needed a place to stay for their family so they can kind of look at the area and find a house to stay and things like that. So those are the kind of folks that we typically have.
I understand if there are, I don't know what percentage, but a percentage of the houses are rental. Most of the time, that comes with a contract, and it's not a day-to-day or week-to-week. It's like a 6 month or a year.
Well,
this,
we sent that to you guys
We actually do the
too.
same thing.
It's
We
a
gave you a
rental
copy of our
agreement.
rental agreement. Everybody has
Yeah.
to sign a rental agreement and put a deposit down.
for 6 months to a year though.
No.
No, for
No.
the
They're
amount of their
moving
stay.
out and new people.
Their
are
stay,
moving.
they still have to sign a rental
Okay.
agreement.
Yeah.
That's one of our
Just to
stipulations.
have it in writing that they are aware of our rules and regulations for our home.
And for the neighborhood.
I
So-
mean, the last thing we wanna do is, be a
Cause a
nuisance
problem.
in the neighborhood.
Right, for sure.
We wanna, supply a place for people to stay.
All right, thank you.
Any questions?
Any other questions, or? Did you guys receive our information? Okay.
This time would be appropriate for anyone that wishes to speak in opposition, come forward, state your name and address, please.
Billing Anderson, it's in Barnett Bend, 3 and South. I'm at 211. I'm the complainer next door. Because again, it feels like a hotel. Vehicles are in every 2 and 3 days. That's just my opinion. That's my thoughts on it.
But
And
if
it-
somebody was living there, it'd be the same vehicles there every day.
Well, right, yeah, and these are just different, and they're all out of town, Texas, Arkansas, wherever. It's just different people. That's just my concern, in my opinion.
Just concerned.
And if we let this happen at this place, more of them pop up. And I have one lady that did write on a Facebook thing, she's like, I have one across the street from me. And she said, there's vehicles, they're everywhere. She said, I can barely get out of my driveway because I have an Airbnb. They're all in the yard, they're in the road, which, they're not. They explained to me, and I do feel better about it, but that's what I'm saying. This one's popped up, more's popping up, and it is kind of becoming a nuisance. And it's all in these residential neighborhood areas. So,
Thank
it's
you.
just a bigger concern if
Well,
it gets
thank
bigger.
you. That is my concern too.
Yes.
Is there anyone else to speak in opposition on this matter? Mr. President, I'm prepared to address proposed conditions for this. I also would like to inform the board may already be aware, currently Central Mississippi Planning and Development District is working through updates to our comprehensive plan, and that will correspond with updates to the zoning ordinance. And one of the issues that they're looking at is the short-term rental. And we've been working with them about what that looks like going forward, how that can be set up and regulated more effectively, more uniformly across the county, unincorporated county. And so we want to look into that. The board needs to be cognizant that when we start getting into issues of regulating land use, we can trigger some constitutional issues that come forward where if our regulations are deemed to be overly burdensome on land use, we can be called to account for that. And so we have to be, thoughtful about how it is that we look into these issues. That doesn't mean that we can't regulate them. It means that our regulations need to be commensurate with what it is that the board deems to be a critical issue for public safety, for preservation of property values, and for all of those kinds of additional considerations. We had to be thoughtful and we had to be organized about how we regulate and what we do. So with that, I'm prepared to go through proposed conditions, but I really want to take the temperature of the board at this point before I launch into that, because there are a number of conditions that we have proposed. So would the board wish to hear the conditions, or does the board wish to move straight into consideration of the application?
Steve Gaines would like to see what CMPDD comes out with. We can change the atmosphere of our residential subdivisions if we're not careful.
Yes.
And we would not allow an apartment, say, to go in this zone.
Correct.
Or a motel. We're skirting around that. So
Yes.
I'd like to see CMPD's response.
Understood. One issue that I think we have is that our definition under our zoning ordinance calls for a bed and breakfast. And what you've heard here is when we think about how traditionally we define what is a bed and breakfast, this short-term rental arrangement that we have heard described for us, it doesn't fit within our classical understanding of what a bed and breakfast looks like, right? Typically, you would think the owners of the facility are going to be on site, they're going to be there to tend to the issues, and that literally they're there to provide the breakfast piece of that, right? They're there to serve a hot meal in the house. That's our traditional understanding of a bed and breakfast. This proposed use does not fit within the confines of a traditional understanding of a bed and breakfast. It's something totally different. This is self-serve housing, right? And while breakfast items can be available, that there is no serving. There's no one there to host, as it were. The host is off-site, and so it doesn't fit within the classic understanding. This would be, and what you're being asked to do is to consider this in the nature of a bed and breakfast, of falling into that definition somehow. And I think we're having to shoehorn something that doesn't really fit. But that's not to suggest that we shouldn't be planning for how to deal with this Airbnb type setup. We should be planning to deal with that in the future. And so we're just not there. We're waiting on CMPDD. When do we expect, do we have any kind of idea when we might be hearing from those guys? Okay. I would think that by maybe September, we will be undertaking a review of our comp plan, and there will be regulations proposed regulations within that discussion that the board will be able to weigh in on. And I think we can anticipate that we will have a clear understanding about where to situate these Airbnbs, where they get put, where they are eligible. And we have some defined thoughts about that, by the way. But I think we're premature to try to shoehorn it here when we don't have a definition under our current zoning ordinance that lets us figure out where this goes. Okay?
But, I mean, but the way they're talking, that there's already people doing this in the.
Yes. So as we.
They try and do it the right way, but you got
Yes.
people that's already doing it, that's not doing it the.
Good point.
Let me, I think they are, but I don't know that they came to us and just said, hey, oh, by the way, we'd like to get squared. I think that was brought to us
I got you.
in the form of a complaint. Isn't that what initiated it, Renee? Okay. And so, we have discovered that these activities are happening. And I want to say this very clearly. County government struggle to stay ahead of the curve on how things are moving in, especially in the real estate market. We are forever trying to catch up with where things are going. I give you build to rent subdivisions.
I was gonna bring that
I
up.
give that to you as Exhibit A of how we are having to run to try to catch up with what the market's doing. And so this is an example of something that's gotten a little bit ahead of where we are definitionally in our zoning ordinance. And we've asked CMPD to help us. And I think how I would like to position this and suggest to you guys is that we're not saying no to this. And I would strongly encourage the applicant to allow for some level of patience here. If they insist that we move forward with a decision today and you reject, they will not be able to come back and ask you guys for relief for 12 months under our zoning ordinance. If we don't take it up today and we allow us to move through the process of working with CMPDD and getting our comp plan together and getting the definitions in place on a zoning ordinance, there is a possibility that as early as this fall, we will have a way to address this application.
Is there a mechanism that we can put it, I want to say not on hold, but allow them to continue for a period of 90 to 120 days, or until we hear from CMPD? And that will give us time also to monitor and see how things, it'll give the neighbors more time to decide, and it will give us something hard from CMPDD.
Steve, I think where it's a little challenging to suggest, the activity that we think is probably a violation of our zoning ordinance can just continue. That's problematic. Okay. I think where we should be here is is suggesting there will not be a conditional use permit issued today. We're going to delay action on the permit application until such time as we have completed our review with CMPDD. And that we expect that to be completed, we hope, at some point this fall. And then we can undertake it at that point once we've adopted our new definitions and we see where it fits.
Yeah, I can't imagine this is gonna be our only one. It's just the only one we know about, you know?
That's what Brad was saying, yeah.
So there's not a way, Steve, to say, hey, just keep doing what you're doing, even though it potentially, there is no permit and it's not an authorized activity. Keep doing what you're doing because it allows for these folks, unfortunately, to be in the unfortunate position of being subjected to lawsuits. The neighbors can file suit and say they are conducting activities that are not permitted under the zoning ordinance. And that's because everybody in the county has the ability to use our own zoning ordinance regulations and enforce those. And so even if we wanted to say keep going, that they are subjected to potential liability by keeping going. My advice, free, and you get what you pay for, is
It's really not free.
Is to put this in stall mode until we can get better organized ourselves on zoning ordinance, and then be able to meaningfully offer advice and counsel and regulations that can be followed that will address this new. It sounds silly. They've been around for a long time now, but they're new to us.
Yeah.
So we can table this?
I would suggest that we table it. That we table it for a period of time that is not defined while we work with CMPDD to get our regulations in place.
Okay.
Again, the folks need to understand, you move forward with this activity at your own peril.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to table.
Second? Do I have a second? I second it. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes to table this until we have our information from CMPDD.
Hey, Mr. Gaines, can I say just one thing?
Sure.
And I know, I see both sides of the argument on the point of it, and the neighbors and the people that are there. I'm with you as far as not wanting these type of rentals in there, but I do want to also thank the Kovitses for coming in and being as transparent as you've been. I mean, they came in and tried to work with this as best they possibly can and to do the right thing as far as go through the right procedures, so thank you for that. But I do understand where the neighborhood comes from and the people that are in there, so I just want to mention both of those sides have valid points and valid areas of it. But my views and opinions are trying to do the best thing for the community and the group that's there in the overall perspective, not an individual case specific on that. So even though the Kovitses have a fantastic setup, it sounds like, with the proper contracts and things like that would be done right, it doesn't cover the blanket of everybody else trying to do the right thing. So that's what's got to be addressed on the same point. So, yeah, the overall big picture is kind of what we got to look at, other than just a small thing. Yeah.
Will you give that to Renee, or a copy of it? Thank you. All right, did we take a vote?
Yeah.
Okay, motion passed.
Steve, I think she wants to say
I'm sorry.
Ma'am?
Come back up. Yep. Come on up.
Yeah, it's just put on hold to do more review. The board didn't take any action. It's tabled to do more review.
If it's put on hold, though, does that mean
We can't answer that.
you can answer?
I mean, but if you are out there and
You at your
are-
own risk.
If someone sues you or complains that there are some things going on that we just cannot accept, we probably will have to address it right away. Otherwise, if you'll allow us some time, we'll address it when we have the information from Central Mississippi Plan Development.
Okay.
They assist us on our zoning regulations and give suggestions and review the areas. So that's kind of where we're trying to get. We want to make a good overall policy, not just specific to your case.
We didn't
We
say,
understand, right.
we didn't say no, but we're just tabling it until we get all the information we need.
Right now, we
Okay,
don't know.
great. I
Free
understand
advice
that.
to you guys, I would let the folks that are in there know, hey, it may be that you guys need to find another location. And then I would simply ask that your neighbors try to be as neighborly as they can. I mean, y'all got these people in there, and they are counting on being able to be in there for a period of time.
Or at least for another week.
let's let those folks be able to serve out their time there,
Sure.
and let's just don't re-up a new rental after that until we get this straight. That would be a good compromise position for the neighbors.
Right,
I
but
don't
I'm
control the neighbors. I can't manufacture an outcome that's acceptable to everybody. That seems reasonable to me. Those poor folks are already in there, let them serve out their turn, and then don't re-let it until we get this straight.
But we're now being told we can't relet it, so.
Yeah, so
We
you
didn't
already,
know.
you already let it, I'm saying re-let, don't do a.
But we
Well,
have
no, for the same side of that, the regulations say you can't do it right now. So we're trying to figure out an overall plan to be sure that that regulation is as clean as it can be for moving forward in the overall picture of it.
In the meantime.
Which is
we
why
have
you're having to be
pay our-
here anyway, right? I mean, that's,
In the meantime, we have to pay our mortgage.
Yeah.
So in defining these issues, as quickly as possible would be great. There are median ones too, where,
yeah,
minimum
and I
would
guess,
be 30 days.
yeah, and I guess what we're telling you is right now, you're in violation of what it says.
Okay.
So we're trying to examine a way to be sure that we have the right regulation in place. Because as these instances pop up, obviously we need to be sure our regulations say the right thing. We don't believe in over government, right?
Right.
We believe in the
the same-
marketplace of that same side, but you're in a neighborhood, right, that has
Right.
the values of everybody around it that we have to consider, not just a specific spot.
Right, of everybody, not just one person.
That's right.
And
So,
and
Yep.
the violation is because we're not considered a bed and breakfast, is that why?
You don't
Because I
have
don't think it says short-term rental specifically can't be.
we don't have a conditional use.
What you're wanting to do requires a conditional use permit.
Okay, gotcha.
You don't have a permit.
We don't have the permit, so that's the reason. Gotcha. Okay, I just want to make sure we were clear to be understood. Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
y'all, thank y'all for coming.
My name is Yana Gilder. I live at 204 Meadowlark,
Well-
born and bent as well.
What was your name, ma'am?
Yana Gilder. I have not planned on speaking.
Yeah,
Apologize,
yeah.
but I would like to say something. 9 out of 10 houses in Barn and Bend being purchased by pretty much out-of-state investors. We don't care about what property look, we don't care who live there. On both sides of me are long-term rentals. Am I happy with it? No. The grass, the stuff in the yard, the dogs, the fence. I would rather have Airbnb there, who will be taking care of the property, make sure it's all.
This
So
one
after-
will, but that doesn't mean the next one will.
Most of them are long-term, and most of the houses being purchased there because of the price range are investors.
Yeah, I'm saying this R and B, it seems will maintain and are maintaining their property. It doesn't mean that all of them are gonna be maintained like this, and we've gotta look at the overall picture. And I agree, I
Most
would
of-
like to limit the rentals in neighborhoods. I don't- that's a
Okay,
big-
I'm trying
thank
to say
you.
what I
Thank you.
would rather see, a
Yeah.
house taken care of,
Yeah,
is it
I got you.
long-term or short? But when I travel, I have 2 dogs. I don't have children, but I do have 2 dogs. And it's way easier to stay in Airbnb with them than
Yes.
in hotel.
Mhm.
And, people who are long-term renting houses, I'm not gonna say all
They
of
might not
them,
take
but
care of the
some
property
of
as
them,
much
they
as-
don't care, it's not their property, they're just there.
For
Go to
school
work,
or
living
whatever.
from paycheck to paycheck, stuff all over the place, there's nowhere to complain. Landlords are out of state, big companies are taking care of maintenance, you cannot get anybody on the phone, it's a disaster. I have one that is my neighbor, I don't even know who else to complain. So I just want y'all to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
If you,
That our
if you
Airbnbs are-
recognize one that is consistently
Mhm.
not being maintained, and it could meet the guide of nuisance, then you call this office
Okay.
and make a complaint with the address, and they will look into it. We'll do them one at a time if we have to.
I will do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you. Well, hey, I didn't get your address.
204
204.
Meadowlark Drive.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sounds like Ms. Gilder may be energized enough to literally be the affiant or the complainant for a nuisance property. So many of the times, gentlemen, what we find is that neighbors are really exercised about it, but they don't want to put their name on the bottom line as the complainer.
right?
That leaves us nowhere. We have to have the complaints. We work complaints. We don't go around trying to hunt property situations. We address complaints. So unless our folks are willing to complain, put it in writing, get it to Ms. Renee so we can go work it, we're left to wonder, where's all this coming from?
And Dwayne loves to go out and take pictures and look at them.
Yeah.
All right.
So that was my soapbox
Thank
moment,
you.
Mr. President. I apologize for that.
Thank you.
All right, so are we ready to move on to the next one? That matter's been tabled. That hearing is closed. Item F, Mr. President, is a public hearing on the Old South Excavation LLC conditional use permit. This application comes from Mr. Spencer Beckwith with Old South Excavation, and he's seeking a conditional use permit to expand the surface mining operation on Rankin Road. He was originally approved for a 4-acre exempt mining permit in July of 2022. He's requesting to mine an additional 13.32 acres out of a 217-acre parcel. The property is zoned RE1. An application has been filed with the Department of Environmental Quality. The hearing notice was published and the property is posted. Community Development Office has received 4 calls in opposition, and the opposition is stated as it's causing damage to Rankin Road. It's causing dangerous traffic conditions with dump trucks constantly going in and out. And so that's what has been reported to the Office of Community Development. So we will open that public hearing, and I will ask for anyone who is here to speak in opposition to the Old South Excavation LLC conditional use application to please step forward, give your name and address as you address the board.
And before anybody gets up, how long has this been in operation? How many years?
About a year.
Okay.
Yep. Gentlemen, when we have folks to step forward, bear in mind that there has been activity, mining activity conducted near this location that may not be the applicant's activity. I want to be clear about that. So there may be some confusion amongst the neighborhood about exactly who may or may not be responsible.
Because there's another pit behind it, beside it?
There's
or
an
something?
illegal pit
Okay.
adjacent, an illegal pit, non-permitted, no activity with DEQ, and activity has been ensuing in recent days especially. And so I just want to make it clear to anyone here on this matter that it may be that this particular applicant is not responsible for all of what has happened in recent days that relate to damage to the road or conditions on the road that are unacceptable or whatever, okay? We've got some illegal activity that has been going on. We were made aware of it and that has been put to a stop, okay? So, anyone here to speak in opposition on the Old South excavation should come forward and give name and address.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
David Ruth, 175 Rankin Road, Brandon, Mississippi. Mr. Morrison said earlier, and Mr. Slade both said that y'all work off of complaints. You don't know things are going wrong unless you're told about it. Mr. Morrison told Mr. Hodge he's not going to get into who's calling in and complaining because that's done for a reason. You know, there's usually a lot of animosity. Usually people are in fear of calling in for retaliation. And so apparently I was thrown under the bus. I was contacted by both individuals running that dirt pit, which we're very fortunate that they are both level-headed men and that I didn't have to worry about the animosity and the retaliation. One talked to me about trying to resolve the matters at hand, and the other one was angry because he's cut off from his property, and I can understand that. But, and waiting on this meeting to start, in the foyer, I was educated this morning, and I learned a long time ago, if you listen, you learn. And there's a gentleman here in this meeting room that educated me that as long as these dump truck drivers are buying fuel and paying their 40 cents a gallon in road tax, that it's not their responsibility, that falls on the county's responsibility. So that's his opinion. If that's true, if that's fact, then I'm looking to tell the county Board of Supervisors the danger that this dirt pit excavation of the dump trucks has caused. It's basically restricted Rankin Road to one lane because they have their proposed apron coming out. One person tells me he put the apron in, which is required by DEQ, but somebody in the trucks out there excavating right after torrential rains. They're muddy, they can't hardly get in and out. The first two trucks come down that apron, they cover it in mud. So that makes it ineffective to the other trucks, which brings it out onto Rankin Road. When they're coming up, they're sliding, having to stop. It's pushing that apron out into the road and causing a hump. People are avoiding that hump. They've come out, they've crossed Rankin Road, their right front tires have dropped off of that shoulder, so it's destroyed that shoulder of the road. So people have one basic lane, about 15 feet that they can go through. And the people with the cars, you know, if everybody abided by the speed limit down Rankin Road, it probably wouldn't be such an issue.
Any road.
Yes, sir. I've come down that road and have been met with people head on because they're in the wrong lane. Now, whose fault's that gonna be if there's an accident? It's gonna be the person that's in the wrong lane. But they're avoiding that damaged area to keep from damaging their vehicle. So on May 23rd, I saw a Rankin County crew out there with dump trucks and crew members patching that section. 2 days later, it opened back up, they started. 4 days later, that patch job was ineffective. It was torn out again. So the pit has been closed, that section of it now, for several weeks because of all of this, all of these complaints.
David,
And
is the one you're talking about, is this the one you're talking about? Where the road was tore up and?
Yes, sir, Rankin Road. Now, I don't know.
No, I'm talking about this excavation pit. Was that the one causing the hole that you're talking about?
I haven't been back here to
There's
see.
two pits.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
That's
There's
what we're trying to
two.
figure out.
So the
Who's
one that's
doing-
asking for this, is this the one causing the problem that was patched and tore out?
That section right there, now whoever's coming in and out of that, I don't know.
You have no way of knowing.
I have no way of knowing because y'all talking about two pits being in there.
Yeah.
Right there, that picture right there. And not only are they tearing the road up, you know, coming in and out, but look at the person that unloaded.
Yeah, they walked an excavator over.
No, sir, they walked a bulldozer down the road. Now, track hoe's one thing, which they've done, but a bulldozer, that's permanent right there.
Yeah,
And you ride through
Mike,
that.
can you come up? Our road manager.
That's cleats.
And I
So
might add,
they're all using the same road. Is that what you're saying?
to my knowledge.
the same entrance
they're
and out right
both. Now, I just found out this morning by listening to y'all about an illegal pit. I know nothing about that. I don't know what makes it illegal. I mean, I guess I can assume that somebody didn't require,
Mike,
didn't do the
was
permits.
this- Was this closed down due to complaints? Is that what I'm
Most
understanding?
of this damage was done by the one coming out of the other pit.
I understand, but I'm asking,
Yeah, well, how we know
did
that?
we,
I got pictures of
did
them
your,
unloading the dozer.
did your office close down this Old South excavation, or were they trying to get a no permit, or, I don't recall us.
No, sir, I
We didn't close down Old South. Old South
Okay,
closed
okay,
down.
so that was a
They closed down
a
because,
misstatement.
The landowner, to my knowledge, what was told to me, the landowner, Mr. Coday, closed that and said that they could not come across his property any longer
Old South?
onto Rankin Road.
The subject that we're talking about, Old South?
No.
Or is that what you're saying?
I don't know who's operating out of the pits.
He don't know which one's called which. He don't know what's Old South.
Well, who did the
Old
landowner
Dog, I don't
close
know.
down?
Both of them. He said that they could not come across his property any longer, which they had an access easement road.
Is that what this entrance is right here?
That's right. That's going across private property owned by Mr.
This-
Coday.
What we're looking at is not even gonna be coming on Rankin Road. They're gonna come out on Bridges Road.
No, that's right.
One of them is, and I'm told
No.
one of them's not allowed to. So now the only access road he has is coming out on Rankin Road. So that's where your
not-
animosity's coming.
That's not happening. That
Yeah,
has-
that's not our problem,
No,
but,
but I mean, that's not even gonna, that's gotta go through court,
Right.
because there's no right of way.
so
or
with the
easement.
pit being closed, well, with, not the pit being closed, with that access road right there, that picture you're looking at, I'm asking if it's in fact the county's responsibility because these people pay fuel tax.
I don't know anything about somebody
I
saying
didn't either,
that.
but maybe the gentleman could explain to you that law, but, I'm asking that our road be fixed while that place is closed, because when you,
We will.
you know,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
just,
I don't
the county
intend-
doesn't
I
get a
don't
fuel
intend
tax, as you
to-
know, right? I mean,
I don't even intend
there's
to
no
have
such
that
thing as a county
access.
fuel
The county
tax.
don't-
Right, the
I-
county doesn't collect a fuel tax.
I was
right,
told
so-
that when I first called, I was told that, the people in the pit were fined. And when I asked how much, they said that they weren't sure, that Mr. Slay was gonna present them a bill. And both of them said they hadn't gotten that, and I'm sure it takes a while to do that, but maybe that fuel tax come in
Yeah,
that,
We don't get fuel tax.
If we do-
The county don't get.
well, then that would be the responsibility of these people running these trucks.
We are going, this is gonna be fixed, and there's not gonna be an entrance there
Right.
at all.
Well, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to people mining their own property, and, because I had to have dump trucks bring dirt into my place, so I know it has to happen.
Yeah.
But that continuous
That's not gonna.
disregard for, taking care of the road is my
David, it's
problem.
not gonna continue.
All right,
Well, they all know not to unload a
And
bulldozer in the road.
what you've seen,
I don't even know
the
who's in
pictures
the
and
room,
stuff,
but you don't
are
unload a
not
bulldozer in
the
the road.
subject person.
yeah,
That was not him,
yeah,
and that's why it's having to go through court.
all right,
Okay.
all right.
Thank you.
y'all.
Thank you. They may have some people speaking.
No, just, I'll tell you, if you will briefly explain what the entrance and exit will be if this Old South is approved.
Okay. Yes.
Quick-
So this
quick.
will be fixed. It's been dug out and based in. That's the reason it hasn't been asphalted to get time done. And then we had another contractor come in, which we've got that, and I've got to get the stuff. Once we repair it, it'll be sent to Craig, and we'll try to recoup our money on that.
Yeah.
Old South is gonna come out Bridges Road, which is a county road. and
Gravel.
Gravel road, yes, sir. And, I think it's in their conditional use permit that they'll maintain the section of Bridges Road coming out to Rankin Road.
And that should clean the wheels
Yes, sir.
if they will keep it gravelled and maintained.
Big gravel.
That's right.
It
Big
will
stuff.
be a stretch that will,
Yes, the contractor will be responsible for keeping the road and maintained and cleaned up and the flagging, going on, Steve.
okay,
And we thought this was a better entrance just because of the way the traffic was. If they're gonna be mining, you got a little better sight distance than where the other entrance was.
okay.
But I think he had to mine some dirt where he was to be able to get his entrance here.
Well,
But Bridges is a public road.
Yes,
in, I guess, response and being sensitive to the people that live on Rankin Road
yes,
and travel this, I have been, I don't want to use the word strict, but we had to change some things.
yes, sir.
And what I presented, I am confident that you have implemented, and it's part of this process, that they will not come out on Bridges Road. They will come on the gravel road, and they will maintain that gravel road for the distance of their entrance and exit, and
I
will,
think you meant to say they won't come out on Rankin Road.
Rankin, they won't
Yeah.
come out on Rankin
Well, they'll
Road.
come out on Rankin
I mean,
when Bridges
from-
comes out, but they won't be
from
using
Bridges,
the dirt
right.
entrance
It won't-
now.
But
They
we're gonna
will
have
be-
to still maintain.
I think they're
Bridges
gonna
Road.
have, if
Yeah.
I've looked at it
He's
right,
gonna maintain
I said,
Bridges.
Bridges, even though it's gravel, we're gonna still have to.
He
He
is gonna be responsible from
Okay.
his drive to Rankin
so he's
Road.
got a couple hundred yards of running on gravel road, so we ought to be good and clean by the time we get out there and should eliminate some of the problem we've had.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
all right. That,
All right, Craig.
that's somebody else.
Speak in
Oh.
opposition, name and address, please.
You live on Bridges?
No, my name is Tommy Smith. I live at 199 Rankin Road. And it was my understanding, and I wasn't here a year ago, but that there was a conditional use permit granted to allow them to mine and come out on Rankin Road at that, and it expired. And so now we're re-upping. I don't know if this is the same thing or not,
Not sure.
but the damage to the road is extensive. And my concern is not only that, I had 400, when I moved in, I had over 400 dump trucks of dirt delivered to my house.
Totally.
So I understand that dirt needs to be moved and that people have the right to mine their property and do these things. But when my trucks were delivering the dirt to my road, before that truck pulled out, they swept off the tailgate and the back end of the truck so that the debris didn't fall on the highway.
Yes.
So the trucks were clean when they left out, and they didn't leave dirt all the way down the road. And I understand that mud gets in tires and stuff, but one of the problems we have in Mississippi in general is that we don't enforce any kind of rules on trucks pulling out with dirt packed on them and dropping off on the road. And we get broken windshields and damage to our vehicles. Now, that exit that you showed the picture of where the damage was, there was rocks as big as a grapefruit or a cantaloupe left in the middle of the road that does damage to cars. So my concern is not about them mining. Let them mine. But my concern is that they keep the road clean and swept and all of these big chunks of rock
We
and
have
everything and the
incorporated
dirt.
that
off.
also. We've incorporated that he will have a sweeper and they will sweep.
They said that last year.
But they not
And
coming out.
they didn't sweep twice in a year.
But they not coming out that entrance that is torn up. They coming out this new entrance.
I understand the
You
new
just saying
entrance,
that's what
but I'm just
happened, yeah.
saying what happened
Right.
at the previous one.
Right.
So if they're gonna come out the new entrance on Bridges Road, and I understand where Bridges Road is and how it's got much better ingress and egress onto Rankin Road, which will help a whole lot. But still, we don't want that debris falling on
Right.
Rankin Road that
Right.
does potential
I got you.
damage to
I got you.
vehicles.
Yes.
We agree.
Understood.
I understand.
We agree.
Yeah,
I think
I
Mr.
got you.
We-
Smith would be happy with the proposed conditions that will be read shortly.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good. All right.
I'm Misha Craven, 185 Rankin Road. To what Mr. David and Mr. Tommy both said, absolutely agree with everything. What I have to add is, I was at the meeting when the initial conditional use was granted. I listened to all the stipulations that you all put before them in regards to the sweeper, the water trucks for dust, okay? If you're not coming out the original entrance that's now closed, maybe the dust won't be a problem. I have Mr. Tommy's concerns about the mud from the start of Rankin Road to the entrance of the dirt pit. There's still gonna be damage to Rankin Road, whether you come out Bridges entrance or the original. What about the bridge? What about the other parts that have been patched that are broken up already at the beginning of Rankin Road, adjacent to Highway 80? All of that's still gonna be wear and tear. When that bridge wears out, what's gonna happen to us? Oh, we're gonna have to go all the way around the world because we're not gonna be able to go over the bridge while it's being worked on. There are a lot of concerns about the
Let me
continued
ask
wear
you
and
this,
tear.
when y'all got
Yes.
400
Mhm.
dump truck loads,
Mhm.
did that concern you
I
about the
did
bridge?
not have 400.
I mean,
And
Miss-
Mr. Tommy
well,
did.
that's-
Mr. Tommy did.
Wrong
Yeah.
person.
Same address.
And
though.
again, this is just things that we think about
Yeah.
being there.
Yeah.
The other major thing that I have, there were certain working hours that were put forth.
Yeah.
That has absolutely not been adhered to.
Oh.
Now, Sunday mornings, Saturday mornings, I can assure you, I hear the beeps of the backhoes, whatever equipment is going on, and I'm not talking about dump trucks, I'm talking about digging equipment. There have been semis go in and out of these entrances. I mean, you can see like the marks in the road. This is not just a little dump truck coming in and out. This is way more than that. It definitely affects us at home. I mean, at home on the weekends, that's my time.
If you see something or hear activity on Sunday, call it,
Who am I calling?
that office
Okay.
right there.
I actually expressed concerns
or the road.
last time and was told that this was for the greater benefit
On Sunday?
of about hours and everything. I was told that this was for the greater benefit of multiple people, so basically, us as individuals, it really didn't matter.
It does.
So,
It matters.
it matters to us too. We live there. This
Yep.
is our lives. These are our neighbors.
Yep.
This is where we are. I understand everyone has to make a living. I completely understand that. I respect that. However, this is our home. It is not commercial. It is residential. It needs to be treated as such. So that's where I am.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We're trying to do the best we can with what we have.
Jonathan Shane Keys, 112 Rankin Road. So as far as, I'm for anybody doing what they can to make a living, and I have no problem with them hauling dirt out. That's fine with me. I have about 15 years in geotechnical engineering experience. So I've dealt with a lot of these guys. I've dealt with the pits. I've been to them. I've been to this pit. I followed about 8 trucks into it, rode all the way back and explained to them that if the trucks didn't slow down, that we were going to have to see about getting permit shut down. I've pretty much come to agree. I've got 3 other neighbors that kind of call me, and then I kind of text Woody and them. I've gotten to know Woody. The main thing is the trucks. They're not stopping. They're not cleaning the tailgates off. The road is in bad shape. From where the 18-wheelers, they have both dump trucks and they have the long haul trailers that they're pulling in there. The angle that they're turning, I mean, is tearing the road up. Now, this road right here, that road's not gonna last. I mean, that's a residential county road, that's not designed for that kind of traffic, like Rankin Road is.
That's Bridges.
Road. I just don't think it's gonna handle the traffic. So I think we're gonna end up having probably some issues on there as well.
How many homes are on Bridges?
Okay.
One?
So,
2?
Maybe just 2.
okay, so it probably won't impact a
Are
bunch of
they
people.
aware of what's? Okay.
That man right there.
Backing up right now, you see that.
He comes and goes to work every day, and we never hear from him. We don't.
All right.
My question, they said that Bridges Road is a county road. How far down is it where the?
This is only, yeah, this is 200 yards from Rankin Road is about where their entrance will be.
No, I'm talking about how far is it deemed a county road? Because-
It's much farther than
Okay, so
where the
a lot of
entrance
the
will be.
gravel is still.
It's public,
Yeah.
at least to the entrance of this proposed location.
Right.
It's public to there. I'm pretty confident that it's gonna be public well beyond that point.
Well, but it seems to me like the road's cracking up right now.
Right. I mean.
So if it is, I'm saying you can't hold him responsible for the road cracking up.
Well, he is going to be. If he's gonna bring trucks through there, he's gonna be responsible for that area where he pulls out and Bridges Road where they turn. I mean,
Well-
Bridges and Rankin where they turn.
Okay, well, I mean, as of right now, where they have been turning,
Yep.
which is the same
Right.
way that I
Yep.
followed them in back to
Yep.
the pit, it's in very bad shape. So, and, I mean, just packing it in
We
here
have
and there.
some pictures.
Yeah, we
We've
got
got
plans
pictures.
to fix that.
It's,
Right.
it needs maintenance. It is not in bad shape compared to some other roads.
Right.
It does need maintenance, and we already have that.
Well, basically the kind of agreement me and kind of Woody kind of came to was that if the trucks continue to speed, I'll text him, and I asked him not to sell to that truck anymore.
Exactly.
And that's what,
Well,
and they're also running Jake brakes. I've complained about that. Would y'all please put a sign on Rankin Road, no Jake brakes?
Well,
Do you think that might be something we could look into?
I don't know that we have enforcement. That would be, I mean, the sheriff's department.
If we
would
could
have
just
to-
look into it.
We will try to address whether or not we have the
The
authority.
scraping off of the trucks, I mean,
Yeah.
y'all just paid to have all that resurfaced through there, well, not resurfaced, but actually put down
Yeah.
and, I mean, after trucks run, it's completely yellow. I mean, they're just dumping dirt and everything as they come down through there. They're flying, they're not cleaning off the back of the trucks like they should. And I would just ask that, we need something in place that either they're gonna enforce it, or we can immediately put a stop to it. We won't have to spend weeks trying to go through board hearings. and-
Shane, there's one thing that probably people aren't aware of, because we just did this within the last 6 months. We have got 2 patrol type people hired
Okay.
for these type purposes.
Rural county roads.
Rural county roads and trucks and things like this.
And can
They
write
have done
tickets.
a great job where we've had problems. We can't expect the sheriff's department to sit there
Sure.
every day, all day, and do that. But we have now two guys that's what they're supposed to do. And if we get complaints, you can bet I'm gonna be calling Mike, Craig, and whoever else and saying, I want them out there. I don't care if they're out there all day. This is not gonna happen.
And we all appreciate that, and that was just the main thing.
I
I'm not
understand.
really opposing them. I just wanted to let y'all know, hey, I'd like a couple safeguards.
I don't want them
And just to be hold them to what they say
Yeah.
they're gonna do.
No, I don't want them out there on Sundays.
Okay.
You know, I don't want after hours operations. There's some that do it by the book. We've, on the other end of the county, not anything to do with this, had a huge contract when they were rebuilding Lakeland Drive.
Yes,
And
sir.
they were doing that work at night. So they needed to get their dirt at night. It was too much of a disturbance. I talked to the guy and he said, it's done. It's over. No more. They'll have to find their dirt somewhere else.
Understand.
He shut it down, the nighttime stuff. And we will monitor this too. I believe this guy is gonna work with us. He wants to be in business, and if he wants to be in business bad enough, he's gonna do it right.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank y'all.
Yes, sir. Thank
Appreciate
you.
Next.
Like the barber shop.
Could I just add one thing out of fairness, and, well, it's just out of fairness, and after me getting up here, I guess somewhat opposing it, but defending the two dirt operators, they both assured me they had no problem with paying for damages that they occurred.
Yep.
Incurred. But so, we don't know who did what. One said he ain't hauled out of there in months.
Right.
And, the other one, you know, that's his only,
Was.
access.
Was.
And now he can't operate. He's not allowed to come across that property.
Well,
So
he'll work
anyway,
that out.
that's between him and the
Yeah.
landowner, but they both did say, you know, that they had no problem paying for damages.
Right.
So instead of the county and everybody in this room that pays taxes having to pay for something
Right.
that their dump truck drivers don't.
Thank you.
So,
Any others to speak in opposition?
Gentlemen, a couple of points. I just want to clear it up.
Make sure
and-
they can
and-
hear you. We do go do conditions, make sure they can
Yeah.
hear you.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through the conditions that the staff has come up with, that I think will address, if not all of them, most of the concerns that have been raised. But before I get to the conditions, I wanted to address Mr. Root's comment, and this, Dave, this is something you take with you and help us out there in the community. If you hear nonsense about who's responsible for roads and that type of thing. So the truth of the matter is this, there is a misconception on the part of, it's not just haulers, it runs the gamut. Anybody that's using the public roads for purposes of hauling activity, heavy loads, that type of thing. Sometimes our subdivision developers, well, you'll hear it out of them as well. It's a county public road. I can tear it up if I want to. County's responsible to fix that. That misunderstanding is out there. And I just wanted to caution anybody that has that opinion or has that misunderstanding, and encourage them to go look at Mississippi Code annotated 65-7-4 and then ask themselves again whether or not somebody that tears up a public road can be held responsible for that. A public road. So I want it to be clear, if we've got activity that is tearing up my public road and it's brought to my attention on behalf of the board, I will pursue the responsible parties and collect the damages. So they are well served not to create extraordinary damage to my road. Offloading a bulldozer in my road, that's a problem. I got tracks, and apparently, Mr. Harrison, I've got photographs. Okay. I will address that, gentlemen, with your permission. We will go to the responsible party and we will collect the damage that was caused. And it doesn't matter if it's a public road. So I want to be clear about that. I'd like our hauling community to understand they have a responsibility to protect the county roads, just like you do. Okay, so.
You wanna make clear on the 40 cents a gallon?
Yes, sir. I haven't seen any of the 40 cents. Y'all have not seen any of the 40 cents.
There might be some money Keith's hiding over there.
Yeah, our Lord protectors and overseers at the state of Mississippi take all of that and help themselves to it, and it ends up in NDOT's purse. We don't get any of that, okay? So, that nonsense just needs to be put to bed. Hours of operation, gentlemen, would be Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. during Central Daylight Time. It's important for Mr. Beckwith to understand when we get into November and we hit a return to standard time, he doesn't get started before 8 o'clock in the morning and he ends at 5 o'clock. So basically this is to track along with daylight hours, 7 to 7. And then when we get back to standard time, 8 to 5. And that's Monday through Saturday, no Sunday operations. We don't need to hear about any Sunday operations, none.
Could you specify that no activity? So there's nothing happening?
No backup, man, I mean, nobody need to be over there getting dirt ready to go out on Monday morning.
Spencer,
On Sunday.
nothing's running, nothing's operating on Sunday. It's dead quiet. Is that clear? All right, I think that's what we intend, okay? I don't want scratching off going on Sunday. I don't want anything happening on Sunday, all right? Keep the water truck on site for dust control. We've said, this is not unique. We require a water truck on virtually every pit that we give a conditional use for. Have a water truck there. Keep the dust under control. Make sure that we've got good signage to warn the motoring public where the trucks are entering the highway. We need the trucks entering highway signs in place before activity starts. The hauling activity has to come from Bridges Road, and that will be the entry and the exit to the pit. Everything will happen from Bridges. We will, to the extent that it's a paved surface, we need sweeping activity on Bridges Road daily, and if necessary throughout the day, to keep the large material off of Bridges, that paved portion of Bridges, okay? And then we definitely want a sweeper truck, and we want daily and, if necessary, minute-to-minute sweeping activity on Rankin Road whenever we have large material that's being deposited on Rankin. We're gonna have muddy days, we're gonna have rainy days, there's gonna be some activity that occurs. Spencer's obligated to see to it that if any large material ends up on Rankin, it's gotta be addressed immediately.
And take care of these trucks in a husbandly-like manner to where you're not pulling out with large chunks hanging off your tailgate. And
So it comes out tires.
we don't, we're gonna have a section in there of gravel, big rock gravel, to make sure these tires are cleaned before they hit the blacktop. And
Those would be the conditions for the staff, gentlemen. If you've got others that you want to see, if we need to revisit that, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise, it'd be appropriate to take action on the request.
all right. Do I have a motion? I make a motion to approve it with all the conditions that we set forth.
Second.
Jay seconds it. Any other discussion?
Can I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
And it's gonna be short. The dump truck stuff and the haul issues and stuff for the residents, I hear it constantly, and it just gets my heart rate up again. I mean, there's certain things obviously y'all have learned that Daniel just gets crazy over. These haul routes are one of them, because I feel for the people that live on these roads and the travel of it. So the mining stuff and whatever, I get it has to happen, but we issue these permits and everything's fine for a little while, and then it gets out of control. And that's the part that drives me insane, so. I'll just vote in a minute, but, I
I'm-
mean, I know you
I
do
agree
too.
totally. Of course, there's always a however.
Yeah.
Just about every home requires dirt, either in or out.
Yeah.
And like Mr. Smith said, he had to have 400 loads at 199. Right now, there is a manufacturer that's going in that we had a lot to do with them locating. A $79 million plant that's gonna employ over 100 people in Pelahatchie. They need a lot of dirt, and it's gonna come from different areas, I imagine. We have somewhat of a commitment to make sure that if we want these jobs, good paying jobs, we have to be prepared to, and we're trying to prepare in the best way we can with restricting all the bad activity. And now we have a couple of guys that can patrol at the call on radio, without taking away from our security that we have through our sheriff's department.
Yes. It's a balancing act, Steve. So this board is always called upon to balance the interests that are involved. Economic development activity, residential construction activity, everybody's interested in seeing that that's happening, but we also have to protect the residents who are
Right.
in place and
Yes.
have investments in place, and that needs to be protected as well.
Yes, sir.
So it's a balancing act. I think these conditions probably bring as close as we can get from the time being. We're always gonna be faced with the reality that we expect our folks to have integrity and to just simply do the right thing, right? We have to rely on our folks to
And
do
we have
that.
some good ones. We
We
have some guys
absolutely
that
do.
do it.
They have to do the right thing.
There's one other little element in this formula that I didn't know before I got to this job in 2016. Rankin County has a lot of different soils. We have a lot of bad soil, and that's why a lot of foundations have to be dug out. We have certain areas that have good dirt. Not all of them have it. Not by far, not all of them. A small percentage meets the specs. So if you're thinking, why does it have to go here? It's probably because of the dirt, the type of dirt that's there. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We had any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. President, item G under my section is a discussion. I'm not going to read the entire heading here of the resolution, but Mr. Chris Gurris is here. I saw him. He represents the developer in this particular matter, and so Mr. Gurris is here.
Wait, one more. David Querin, you're on our list. Do you have a comment? Do you?
No, I was just here,
Okay.
to support the bid.
Good to see you again.
Good.
David and I used to be friends. And then
Y'all not friends?
Well, y'all used to be. I heard that. Of course, used to be.
Hey, and he slapped me one time. Imagine that guy slapping you? No, I'm playing.
Just to comment on what you said, I live in Brandon, I have a business in Brandon, I'm in the construction business, I have dump trucks. I completely understand all the concerns.
Yeah.
I do know that Mr. Beckwith has done a large service to try to maintain that road and the trucks coming in and out. And some of the stuff was beyond his control with that shared entrance. I was actually the one that saw them unloading that dozer in the road. It was not Mr. Beckwith. I sent the pictures to Mike
Yep.
and to Mr. Beckwith, and just to let y'all, and that's why I'm here. To let y'all know that I'm the one that saw that.
Yep.
And wanted to let y'all know.
We appreciate that. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm glad you weren't gonna stand up and slap that guy again. Woo.
So, Matt, this matter is about a discussion and potential action regarding the adoption of a resolution, gentlemen, that would declare your intent to participate in a tax increment financing arrangement with a developer in the city of Flowood. My understanding is that the city has already published notice for their hearing and will conduct the hearing on their
participation in the tax increment financing plan on the 17th. And so by the time we get to a point where this board is considering whether or not to participate, the city will have already done everything that it is required to do. What you're being asked to do with this resolution is to simply authorize the publication of the notice, the required notice under the statute, and to conduct a public hearing at the appropriate time, which I think will be on August 7th. Is that correct, Chris? On August 7th. That would be your hearing date for the full consideration of participation. And so I'm asking Mr. Gurris if he's willing to step forward and address the board concerning the tax increment financing plan and anything else, Mr. Gurris, that you think is appropriate or important for the board to understand.
Yes, sir, thank you. Your attorney has been mighty busy today. As have
for free.
As have y'all.
You heard that, didn't you?
Yeah. We got it on video.
He's a little sharper when Bishop's back in the league, you know?
Understood. Well, I'm here today on behalf of Pinelands LLC, the developers of the Pinelands project. And of course, they've been developing this project for many, many years with Hugh Ward Parkway and all the residential stuff. And the commercial's been slower to come along Highway 25 in that area. And now there's a lot of activity there. They've got a lot of opportunity to bring in restaurants, office, medical, hotel, grocery, and things they're working on. And what's the subject of this TIF plan is taking about a 50-acre portion of the overall project along 25 and then north along Hugh Ward to Manship, which is the extent of the city limits there. The end of Flowood city limits, to create a tax increment financing district that would authorize up to $5 million in bonds for roadway and infrastructure improvements. One of the unique aspects of this is that there are planned to be walkways, bike paths along the frontage road, east and west, and then on both sides of Hugh Ward going north up to the Manship, connecting into other walkway and trail activities that the city of Flowood is undertaking to create a more comprehensive network there that's pretty good in the public interest. And there's a proposed public park at the intersection of the frontage road and Manship. Presently, the county is receiving about $1,643 a year on the 50 acres.
Is that our part? Is that everything?
That's the county's.
County's part.
County's part presently. Yeah. Upon build out, there are quite a few small lots, and in aggregate, we believe that when this property is fully developed, it'll be in excess of $100 million in private development. And the city is, as Mr. Slay mentioned, has taken the initial step to set a public hearing, and we'll do that on Monday evening. And then hope this board will set a hearing for August 7th in which it can consider its participation. And, y'all have 40.24 mills or so, and historically, the county has pledged to put about half of those into TIF structures when we have been before you in the past.
Thank you so much, Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. So let me walk you guys through the TIF. Okay. Let me walk you guys through the salient portion of the TIF plan that you need to know about. And Chris, please stay handy here where if I misstep, if I say something incorrect, please help me be correct. What the TIF plan, how the TIF plan has been described and what would be available for the public to receive a copy of if they request it, the TIF plan itself, if anybody wants to show up and speak on the matter. What they would see in reviewing the TIF plan is the structure of the county's participation when they got to a specific section of the TIF plan. If they go to paragraph 4 of the TIF plan, they'll find the county's pledge described, and the way that language appears in the current proposed TIF plan is that the county would pledge all of the county's millage, all of the 40.24 that is typically pledged or assigned, and exclude that portion of the millage, which is Road and Bridge, and which is Hines Community College, when you add those up, you would get in the neighborhood of about 14.6 mills, somewhere in that range. That was what would be excluded from the pledge, and the balance would be in the neighborhood of 25 mills pledged. Everybody tracking with me on that? Our typical policy is the county will pledge 20 mills. That's what supports the bond payments, the TIF bond payments, 20 mills. So this pledge would be different. This pledge would be closer to 25 mills as opposed to 20. That's the difference, okay? So the reason, why is it like that? Well, it's a $100 million private investment, and so it is significant. It well exceeds your minimum standard for consideration of a TIF plan by a factor of 3 even. So it's a large private investment. It is anticipated that there would be a significant increase in the tax increment. You heard Chris say that the county's current ad valorem receipts on the property that is within the defined district is about $1,600 annually. Chris, what's the best guess?
We're estimating at build out about 490,000 in annual property tax. Now, it's gonna take a while to get there, but that's the.
At build out. Okay, you heard that, right?
What's
So
the
that there is an
anticipation
increment.
of the build out? How long?
I'm gonna tell you, I think it's 5
5
years or so, but they've got a lot of stuff that is under contract right now, and we're gonna see a lot of activity in the near term.
Okay.
What portion after build out, let's just say it's 500,000. How much of that is forgiven on a 50% or 60? What percentage?
Zero.
None is forgiven.
So that is what.
What we're talking about here, Steve, is how much of what the anticipated tax increment is going to be assigned to pay bonds. That increment is going to be used, but to pay the bonds, okay?
It's not, we're not gonna dump that right
it's-
over into our budget.
Yeah, so what we're really talking about here is how much is not going to go in the budget, okay?
Yeah.
This is the secret of understanding the TIF proposals. You're currently, what is going in the budget? $1,600.
Yeah.
Okay?
In
So
5
what
years.
we're trying to wrestle with here are future tax receipts that we don't have and that we anticipate that we will have. And by the way, if those tax receipts don't show up, there is no obligation. There will be no issuance of bonds. You have to be able to have an increment. This is where the developer's on the hook. Developer's got to make sure he produces ad valorem receipts that can then be assigned to pay the bonds. And if he doesn't produce them, ain't no bonds issued.
That's right, Greg, that's a very important distinction with this commitment. Once the city and hopefully the county would approve it, he goes forward, puts in the infrastructure, creates the private development, and we'll come back from time to time, meet with the tax assessor. The assessor will certify the amount of improvements, and the plan will allow for bonds to be issued in more than one series.
Yep.
So if they got half of it done in 3 or 4 or 5 years, we'd come and we'd ask the city county issue 2.5 A. A few years go by, measure it again, and if the taxes aren't there, no bonds get issued, or they get reduced proportionally based on the revenues that are actually
Yes.
created.
Keith,
The real check and balance.
just for clarity, and try to keep it simple for me to understand. After the build out, and then we do the bonds, which have to be paid back, the 480 or 500,000 a year will go toward the payment of those bonds.
No, sir, a portion of it.
portion of
Steve.
it.
What portion is
All
what
right.
that's what I'm
That
asking.
y'all are gonna tell us.
Okay.
Right now, the applicant has requested
All of it.
basically 25 mills. No,
No.
he's asked for all of it except
We keep
Road and Bridge
Hines
and
and
except
Road and Bridge.
Hines.
Hines and Road and Bridge.
Yeah, under the policy, normally that where you had
Yep.
limited it to 20 mils, it would be right at half of that money would come to the county, half would go to
Yep.
pay the bonds. So this is a little more than half would go to pay the bonds.
Yep.
And the county would get a little less than half.
Right, okay. That's what I thought
Of
that I
a
was
much
understanding.
larger number than we're currently getting.
Okay.
Actually, of only the amount above 1,600 that is generated. If we get the first 1,600, regardless, because that's not the increment.
This will go on for the term of the bonds.
Until the bonds are paid.
Until the
And
bonds are
these
paid.
are 15 years?
15 years, I believe, is the max, am I right, Chris? Yeah, 15
So it'd be
years.
But our
15.
exposure is limited to 5 million.
Yeah, the total bond amount is $5 million on
Okay, all right.
a $100 million investment.
After
So-
15 years, we would then be able to get the money that Mr. Curtis was talking about for our budget and use in roads and bridges and whatever else.
You'll go from
But it'll be
getting,
15 years before that actually is money we can spend.
No,
in
I
our
mean,
budget.
it's not the full, it's only 20% of that 40% is going, the 20% is going.
20 mils of the 40
20
mils.
mils.
Yeah,
We're
20
getting
mils.
something, we're not losing road and bridge.
We
No,
keep
I know that.
yeah, that money will
I know
stay
the road
in
and
the.
bridge is staying.
And then you have to look
But
at the.
it's a little inflating to say that we'll be getting nearly $500,000 a year after this is, we will, but we're having to pay back bonds with a lot of
Well,
it.
250
A
will
lot
go
of
to
it.
For
road
at
and
least-
bridge,
at least
and
half of it.
250 will go to the bond.
And the city's also paying their ad
Yeah,
valorem
that's
toward
correct.
the bond as well.
Yep.
in
Okay.
fact, I think the city is pledging all of their equity.
They are,
Yeah.
and an important thing, and I think y'all are aware of this, because we've been here before, but the city would actually issue the bonds. The county would
Right.
have an interlocal
Yep.
agreement to
Yep.
participate annually by writing a check to the city for its portion.
Right. All right, so if everybody understands that, again, I go back to this, you're not being asked to make a decision on this today, but you are being asked to publish something in the newspaper that identifies your TIF plan. It's very important that we know now that the board is comfortable with the proposed pledge, because that's what's gonna get published. I don't wanna ask Chris to come to a hearing where what gets published in the newspaper is not what we're talking about when we get here. So I need to know today.
That's not unusual though.
Well, no, it's highly, why do you think I'm stressing that we not do that? So I'd like to know.
What is our normal policy?
Our normal policy, Jay, is we have a stated pledge amount, 20 mils. That's what you guys have historically done on
We'll do a
TIFs.
minimum, why don't we put in the paper, we'll do a minimum of 20 mils.
A minimum?
Yeah.
I think it says up to, anyway, I think it's saying the same thing. And ultimately, I would state that if we come back here on the 7th and the board thinks that it needs to be something slightly different than this, then we could say so at that time, and the approval resolution could reflect that, and then ultimately the interlocal agreement with the city would.
You're comfortable with the publication as it's structured now with the up to?
I think so, yes.
Everybody understand that?
Yep.
Okay, so as long as it's clear that you're not going over, I don't think there's any danger of that. But we're going up to the pledge that's listed here, which would be somewhere roughly 25 mils and some
25.72.
change, okay? That's up to. So on the 7th of August, at the hearing, you will make a final decision about the pledge, and that's what will go in the final resolution document.
So I said 20 mils, not 25.
No, I understand.
Okay.
The publication that is going out to the public is structured so that it is all millage, less road and bridge, less Hines Community College. That's how it's played. That's up to that. I'm giving you the math on what that is. That would be a pledge of about 25 mils. If you said that's just how that came through the newspaper, that's what we're authorizing and approving, your pledge would be 25 and some change mils for this TIF. Okay, so on this.
If I may, be helpful, I read one sentence. The county says, the city will pledge the city's increment, the county will pledge the county's increment to secure the bonds, which is defined but it says, the percentage of the county's tax increment to be pledged may be limited as set forth in an interlocal agreement between the city and county.
All right, you understand that?
Which will come subsequently.
Without identifying a percentage.
Jay, you're telling the public, this is the maximum pledge that the county will provide. And then on the 7th, you will set the actual pledge.
I was trying to say that I think we should do 20 mills, not 25 mills.
Understood.
Okay.
Jay is on record saying he likes our current policy.
I do too.
Which is just, for ease of calculation, it's just 20 mills out of your 40.24, and it'll be up to the tax collector to settle with the county, whatever that's supposed to look like, how that's supposed to be divided, and there would be 20 mills worth of the increment collected that would be used as a pledge to secure the bonds and to pay the amount of the bonds.
Yeah, if we do something different, we just open it up for something down the road too. Stay on the policy. Thought we kind of established that way back, didn't we?
All
I
right.
want to remind you that we've already had conversations about the county's participation in other TIFs. And so at some point, gentlemen, we really need, staff and everybody, how are we going to handle these so that we can make it clear to the development community, this is what you can expect. And it makes it much simpler for us on the front end to be able to help guide some folks. Don't bother coming in here and asking the county to pledge 100% of its millage. It's just not going to happen. Here's our policy. This is how we normally handle these. Please act accordingly. I would like for us to firm up our TIF policy. Can we plan to do that in the not too distant future, please?
We'll be doing our budget, so that'd fit in really well.
Sounds good.
Okay, all right. Can we move on, gentlemen? What I need is a motion to authorize and adopt a resolution of intent and to authorize the publication of that resolution and notice of hearing in the newspaper.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
All right. I have a motion by Jay to approve, second by Daniel to approve. Any other discussion? And the motion to approve this without stating a percentage or what?
Well, our policy is 20 mills.
Okay, with our policy. All right, we have that motion, second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Yeah. So what is going to be available for the public, gentlemen, is that a pledge being described as the county millage less Road and Bridge, less Hines Community College. And then on the 7th, you will tell us exactly what we are pledging. And it may be that on the 7th, the board says, we are using our existing policy and the pledge will be 20 mills. Y'all can do that on the 7th. What's being published in the newspaper is slightly different from that. I just want you to understand. It's not that the public will be confused, it's just that that's the maximum that it could be. You can set a number that is lower than that.
We set the number on the 7th.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. If I may, Mr. President, moving along to item H, discussion of potential action regarding a proposed ordinance that regulates the placement of small cell facilities in unincorporated Rankin County. This is a follow-up to a discussion that we had recently about these large telecommunications carriers that are coming in. And what they've discovered is unincorporated county. Most of the time they've been operating inside of municipal boundaries, so it hasn't been our deal. But they've recently come into some areas that are unincorporated county, and they are essentially trying to help themselves to our county right-of-way to install what are called small cell facilities. These are not your large telecommunications towers and structures. They're not even the monopole structures, but these are smaller. Think about a light pole. Basically, it's like a light pole showing up in the the public right-of-way, and on that light pole there are devices that enhance cell and fiber reception. Wireless facilities that enhance communications reception, and they're doing this in micro settings. Okay, And so we've had a number of requests that have come on county property, not the right-of-way, but on property owned by the county, where they've come to us and said, hey, we'd like to install a small facility on county property. And I think there's one pretty close to the old courthouse, if I recall correctly.
There's
They
one,
thought,
yeah, downtown.
they went first to the city, found out it was county property, and they had to deal with us on it. But at any rate, they're starting to pop up. And so what we're seeing now is that they are wanting to go in the county right-of-way. Right? So that addresses the issue and the challenge that we consistently see with these larger communications carriers and public utilities and even local private utilities, where we have infrastructure installed in our right-of-way that we don't know about, and how that impacts my road manager and his crew on doing maintenance activities. Or if we get ready to expand or improve a county road and we end up in a situation where we're having to relocate infrastructure, that becomes a challenge for us, because now it implicates the potential for increasing the cost of our road project to deal with relocation responsibilities. Y'all remember all that discussion, right? And so what we've done is we've come up with an ordinance that regulates the placement of these small cell facilities in the public right-of-way primarily, although this ordinance applies to all small cell facility placement wherever it is in unincorporated county. They are required to get a permit to do that. What does that do for us? It lets us know where they are, who they are, what they're doing, and then if they're going to implicate the county right-of-way, they have to be at a certain depth of buried infrastructure, so they're out of my maintenance responsibility and that type of thing. It's a basic ordinance that tracks and mirrors an ordinance adopted in 2018 by the city of Flowood. And so it has been vetted over a period of 5 years. It is working for that city over a period of 5 years. It tracks precisely the mechanisms of acquiring the permit, reviewing the permit, going through all of those proper steps on the part of these facilities. There is a permit fee associated with them. That is regulated, by the way. The maximum fee that can be charged is as stated in this ordinance. I want to say it's $1,000 total for any application to install in the public right-of-way, and then there's an annual fee of $270 for each facility placed to continue being in the public right-of-way. And so that's all set for reasonableness standards by the Federal Communications Commission, so it simply tracks what the FCC allows. $1,000 for a permit application, $500 for each additional structure, up to a total of 5 in a batched application. And then there is a $270 per small cell facility fee annually to maintain it there. And so that's spelled out here. And then there's 2 provisions that I wanted to address with you directly, so that you can see that we've attempted to avoid unnecessary problems in the future if we are going to have to call upon the owner of the facility to relocate those facilities because of a road project. And so this section appears in our proposed ordinance. They are required to submit as a part of the application a statement on behalf of the applicant by an individual with authority to legally bind the applicant to comply fully and fulfill that statement, substantially reading as follows. The applicant understands and agrees that within 30 days following notification by the county that all facilities permitted for installation pursuant to the application must be relocated at the sole discretion of the county, then at the sole expense of the applicant, they must relocate the facility within 30 days from the date of notification, or the county will be authorized to remove the facilities with no further notice, and the applicant will be solely responsible for any costs or damages or charges, including reasonable attorney's fees occasioned thereby. All right, so what does that mean? It means that if we notify them that they've got to relocate their facilities, they have to do it within 30 days, and they have to do it at their cost. Okay.
All right.
Second, they have to give us a statement in the application that they understand and agree that any facility placed in our public right-of-way They are waiving any and all rights of recovery against the county for any damages to the facility caused by the county in the conduct of activities within the public right-of-way. If you're gonna help yourself to our public right-of-way, and we are maintaining our public right-of-way, and your facilities are damaged, you get to fix it, and you don't charge the county. So those two, I wanted to highlight those two provisions. We've done our best to try to address some entanglements with these public utilities and common carriers that we've run into in the past, and I think this ordinance does that. Mr. President, unless the board has other questions about this, I would suggest and ask that the board consider adopting it this morning at this hearing, and that would require a motion to approve the ordinance as discussed.
Make a motion to approve the ordinance as presented.
Second.
Okay. Jay makes a motion. Mr. Calhoun seconds it. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Gentlemen, the last item under my section is the adoption of a resolution that honors the life and service of Judge Thomas H. Broom and renaming the Rankin County Juvenile Justice Center as the Thomas H. Broom Juvenile Justice Center. This may seem a little odd that we're talking about this resolution today. We have already scheduled, and you're aware of this, a ceremony that will take place on July the 28th. And this ceremony will take place at the Juvenile Justice Center in Pelahatchie. And I would suggest to you and ask that this resolution be read at the July 28th ceremony so that it can be read in a setting where we have the maximum exposure for the resolution, where we expect the family members to be present, where the youth court staff is able to participate, where members of the Rankin County Bar Association who love and appreciate Judge Broom and his family are there to also help to celebrate his life and his memory, and also to unveil the judge's portrait for placement there at the facility. All of that will take place on the 28th. I want to compliment our Chancery Clerk for his activity in making sure that this happens. I want to express appreciation to Judge McDaniel, to Judge Morrow, for their encouragement that we do this. It's kind of been a team approach, and we're really looking forward to that day.
Yep.
We don't have an intervening board meeting for me, and so I need you guys to adopt the resolution so that I don't read a resolution that hadn't been formally adopted, okay? So this is a little bit out of place that we have the resolution ready to go, and we don't really have anybody here to recognize with the resolution, but we're going to do that on the 28th, okay? So I would need a motion to adopt and approve this resolution. And also, gentlemen, if I may, on the minutes, I would like for it to reflect that the board is using its authority under section 19-3-40 to rename the facility. You have the authority under that code section to name the facility as your building. And so I would ask that as a part of your motion, that you authorize the renaming of the facility to the Thomas H. Broom Juvenile Justice Center. Okay?
All right, do
So
I have a
that would be the
motion? Do I have a motion? Jared makes a motion, Daniel seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Hicks.
Item A, authority to appoint Tim Parker as our county representative on the CMPDD Safe Street and Roads Technical Committee, and authority for myself to complete all the documentation required in doing that.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Daniel makes a motion, Jay seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Item B is the authority to publish our LNA testing for the upcoming election, and we'll do that twice.
Motion approved.
All right, Jay makes a motion,
Second.
Brad seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
I do have a couple items of additional business when you're ready.
We're ready.
All right, the first item is, we need to, at your pleasure, add authority for myself to, and this is all done electronically, sign all the documentations for our Chrissy grant. This is a grant that we received, and we have the agreement ready, and I need to sign that. And it will also give me approval to execute the documents through the life of the grant.
This is, Chrissy is Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvements Act. That is the grade separation portion of the connector loop, the bridge.
So I'll make a motion to add that to the agenda.
Second that motion.
All right, Daniel makes a motion to add it. Mr. Calhoun seconds it. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye. I'll make a motion to approve.
Daniel makes a motion to approve.
Second.
Brad seconds it. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, and the second item, we just received this, so apologize for it not being on the agenda, but we need the board's authority for Constable Robert Hancock to attend a mandatory meeting of the Constables Association Board in Biloxi on July 24th, and authority to pay his travel.
Motion approved.
All right, have a motion.
We need to add it, yes.
Got to add it to the agenda. Yeah.
Motion by Jared to add it.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Brad to add it. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Guess he's on some board for them?
Yes, sir.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
All right, Brad makes a motion to approve. Jared seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Gentlemen, we have paragraph 4 of the consent agenda that you pulled, and because it's personnel, we need to take that in executive. I've got multiple litigation.
I got
We got-
something else then.
All right, so are we still in additional business? I'm
Yeah,
sorry. All right,
there's
I apologize.
Yeah.
on the agenda, there's we have an intersection that, and I don't even know if it needs board approval, just for everybody to know. We have an intersection on Langford Drive and Langford Cove. There is a stop sign coming into Langford Drive. It's a 90-degree turn where this road comes in. It's not been a problem until the last few years, 3 years. Traffic from another road is Oakdale, cutting through. This is a shortcut if they're going to 471 toward Lakeland or anyhow. A lot of traffic is using this small road to cut through Langford Drive, residential housing. Anyhow, they've had a couple of accidents, and I went out there and sat myself and watched, and a 3-way stop would make a lot of difference. And I've got everybody that lives on that road has sent me emails and text messages since they knew I was out there looking at it. Please help us here before somebody gets hurt. So we want to put a 3-way stop there. And the reason is the amount of traffic that's going through there, and this is a sharp 90-degree turn with an intersection that comes in. Okay, Craig, does that need?
It would be good just to add it and
Okay.
go ahead and authorize.
Well,
the road manager.
it's on the agenda.
Yes, sir.
So I'll make a motion that we put the 3-way at that intersection.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Daniel seconds it.
Hey, I want to say one thing. I think it's good to have there, but the next complaint you're going to get is they're running it.
Oh, yeah, definitely, for sure.
They're not stopping at all.
Yep.
That'll be the next
That's
one.
probably true.
That's where we can get Mike Word involved.
We've done what we could do. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Hey, Craig, there's one thing, additional business on the last call.
Yes.
I talked to Craig a little bit about it. We had that storm down at, McCullough-McLean here. The tornado came through there. We did a great job of cleaning up. Mike's crew and everybody, the citizens got out there and worked real hard too. But the problem we got, there is a ditch. Mike, you're aware, it's not that real big, it was a ditch, it kind of snakes through there. The problem is it got some pretty big stuff in it, and they can't get it out. And it's gonna, in that area, I mean, we're getting big rains, it's blocking the culverts and things, and in some places, I don't think we can quite reach it all from the road. But it's gonna create a problem, probably flooding that area again. And I talked to Craig something about it, he said, we can talk about it, so. I don't know what can be done.
The issue is protecting our road, and to the extent that we're gonna get overtopping, to the extent we're gonna get ponding, and it's likely that that's gonna happen during rain events. We would just need authority from the board. We could add it, authority for the road crew to get there and take whatever steps may be necessary to clear the ditches in and around the road beds and in and around the area right there where it's going to create overtopping and ponding on the roads. That's what.
You know what I'm talking about, Mike? Yeah. You know, it snakes through there and it comes back around, or anyway, and you know, got all those trees. I mean, they did a good job of helping, doing the best they could to get stuff out. But I looked at that, they got a good point, what we're gonna do about these ditches. So, anyway.
Yeah.
I
We
like-
just need to add that.
I'll make a motion to add it to the agenda.
All right, I'll second.
So the agenda item would be to add the action and authority on the part of the road department
Protect our road.
to take any actions that are necessary to protect the road as it relates to drainage, stormwater, and the potential for extraordinary rain events in that area that Jared described.
And because of this storm, yeah. Cause it's gonna actually mean they're gonna may have to get off, just a little bit off the road, cause they can't reach it. So,
I make
All
a
right.
motion, well, did we ever, we didn't.
We're adding it.
Yeah.
add it.
I made the motion.
Yeah, I
Jared
second it.
All right, Brad makes a motion, Jared seconds to add this to the agenda. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now then,
Motion
I
approved.
make a motion to approve.
Second.
Brad makes a motion to approve, Jared seconds it. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right,
I got one thing, we're not gonna take action on it, but I'd like Craig to kinda give us a rundown on the build to rent on. I got a subdivisions going up in the county, and a corporation's come in and bought a lot of the homes, and they're planning on renting them out. And, I don't know what we need to do to protect ourselves and.
So what we're seeing in the market, and again, this is what I described previously, that we're trying to play catch up from time to time on some of our land use regulations. So CMPDD is aware of the situation. We've been in communication with those guys. And I think what may be required of us is to address build-to-rent as a land use going forward, and assign or accommodate that activity in accordance with the board's thinking, or what the board wishes to permit, but protect certain residential sectors from that activity, again, in accordance with what the board's feeling is, and assign those to a specific zoning classification, so that the folks out there will understand what the ground rules are before they ever just show up and start making investments with no real awareness of what's going on. So what is build to rent? Turns out that you have private investment companies. These are equity type companies. They don't use banks. They use investor funds, or they use some combination of investor funds and banks. And so these investors will go in and acquire large tracts of houses that are under development. They will find locations where subdivisions have been approved and are in some form of being developed. And they will approach the owners and offer to buy all of the available housing stock, not for the purpose of selling, but for the purpose of holding that as an investment and renting it. Okay? And typically, these are large, out-of-state corporate forms that use private investment funds
they take in investments and then they turn those investments into returns on investment for investors. And these people are out of state, somewhere else, nationwide, whatever. And so some of the concern is that you have an ownership structure for these properties that is not vested in anybody local, and they are just simply being rented out, either short or medium, and maybe sometimes long-term situations. The property certainly can be ultimately transferred. The ownership can be transferred. They don't hold them forever, is my point. But there's no real understanding about what the long-term horizon looks for those properties. They just go into a rental phase.
And I don't even think they have a HOA. I think the corporation is the HOA, and they're the ones that having to make sure, and if they're not in state, I see it being a problem in the future.
And so there is a slight benefit. I don't know if this makes any difference at all. Obviously, if those houses are being bought by a corporate entity, they're not available for a homestead exemption. So you're gonna get your max ad valorem off of these, right? Okay, so, but that's just that's kind of like baked into the cake deal. And I don't know that if you think about that, the benefit to the county probably does not, long-term, does not outweigh the likely issues or problems that we see from properties, wholesale properties, large tracts of properties, entire subdivisions, where all of the occupants are short-term tenant arrangements.
Or some,
Yeah,
because some of the houses were
Some
sold.
could be sold, but
And the problem is the interest rates.
Yes.
The builders have been accustomed over the last 10 years of really behind the market building, and they could sell them before they're finished.
That's right, before they ever finish.
And things change quickly,
What to do.
and the builders are trying to keep the same momentum.
That's right.
And the only way to get that investment back is either sell it like this or rent it for a fee that will cover their note.
Yes.
And I mean, my suggestion is let's slow down and wait for the market to level out and tell us when we need houses.
Yes.
I'd like to see on our
Because
zoning.
they feel like they're in a trap, the developer.
They kind of are a little bit.
Well,
I mean, is there a way, Craig, that, I mean, if a developer comes in and wants to develop a subdivision, it's already zoned RE1 or whatever, can we limit and say legally up front, hey, you can't do build or rent in this subdivision unless you have another zoning hearing or something on it?
So what I would suggest that we look at doing, and I've already addressed this to Renee, we look at what some other areas around the country have been doing to try to address this. We got other places around the country a little ahead of us on trying to regulate in these areas because they're seeing more activity where they are. One in particular, Woodstock, Georgia, which is an Atlanta suburb, and the way that they addressed build-to-rent was they assigned them, they defined what build-to-rent is first, and then they assigned that to a more densely populated zoning classification under their zoning ordinance. If you're gonna do build-to-rent, it's gotta go in this particular zoning classification. I think that's an appropriate way for us to address it. We look at what our zoning classification allows, and we look at what we've got zoned and available, and we assign build-to-rent as an activity to that zoning classification. So in your example, Brad, they're looking at an R1 property. I don't think there's any way that you guys are gonna agree that R1 is open for build-to-rent. I think you're gonna say, no, it's gotta go into a much more densely populated type of zoning classification. I'll just pick R3. And you say, well, if it's an R1 property, you can't do build-to-rent there. So what is build-to-rent? If you go into it and you are developing the subdivision, you're building the houses, and 20% of the housing stock will be for the purpose of rental, that's a build-to-rent. You can't go in R1. You can't go in R1B. You can't go in R1C. You gotta go in R3, right? So they'll have to go find the R3 under our zoning ordinance and put their build-to-rent option there, or they'll have to ask you to rezone property that's not R3 to R3. Either way, you get to address on the front end, where is this going?
I have a
That's-
question, because this, around the upper end of the reservoir, that's gotten to be a popular place that developers wanna look at, and they do not have sewer, so they're still limited on how many houses they can put in. But I've been asked about this build to rent, and I'm not in favor of that. However, I would entertain the idea with you and Keith and the whole group of us agreeing on some type of atmosphere that would be for elderly people. And they have a built-in homeowners association or a management company that is who we look to make sure it's maintained.
Yes.
And certain standards, and it's a different concept than just build to rent. Something that would be attractive, and I just don't believe these build to rents are gonna make our land around it grow in value. I don't see it.
Some of the regulations that I'm looking at right now indicate, Steve, that if they're going to be authorized in the right spot, there are many other requirements that come along with it. It's not just put them in the right spot. There's so many other things that the board has to be mindful about. One of those is what you just alluded to. Have to have an on-site management company.
Yep.
On-site.
Yep.
That is responsible.
And private roads that meet
Apartment
our,
complex.
meet our
Absolutely.
standards. Private
Absolutely.
roads.
Yes.
Okay.
So the on-site management company would be responsible for all activities inside the development.
Yep.
Solid waste collection.
Yep.
That issue has to be addressed.
On-site.
So yes, there's a lot of work to do. I think one of the first steps, though, is that we need to make it clear and plain at this point that, that we're going to address that as a part of our comp plan, that we will in fact assign to a build-to-rent type activity. And by the way, Steve, that the definition of what that is can be broad enough to encompass what you have in mind here. That's a specific area that provides for a low maintenance living
Yes.
type situation.
Yes.
Yeah, well, all of that can be ultimately can be defined so that it fits within that build-to-rent concept, but it's not necessarily build-to-rent.
In the resort areas,
Yeah.
it makes a little sense.
Right. I think the most important part is that we really get comfortable with the idea about where are these
Yes.
going to be permitted,
and that's
right?
what I'd like
So
to work on our
you have the
zoning.
greatest level of control by using your zoning ordinance and just simply defining, this is where these folks, this is where this is permitted, and it's permitted as a conditional use. Not outright allowed, it's a conditional use in R3. And there has to be an on-site management company, there has to be wholesale covenants and restrictions, there has to be a maintenance plan for all of the access roads. There's a lot of things that we can drill down on and help us with that. But what I would like for you to do is to instruct Ms. Renee today that
Mike,
and
don't leave.
Tim as well, any subdivision development that is being planned currently where we know going in that a greater than 20% of the housing stock in that development will be rented and not sold, that's going to be on ice until we have got our zoning situation addressed.
Agree.
We don't bring that forward.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. One thing, Mike, I'd like for Mike to update us on the potential flooding that,
He said it's gonna be another 2 days before they'll know anything.
okay.
About this word.
Yeah, just one.
Yeah, I think some of that we talked this morning, Steve, you know, kinda where the flooding is, you got the Pearl, and I think you got the Gallabooshie up there. They're trying to figure out which way the majority of that water's coming right now. But I think more towards Sunday, we'll have more of a handle on it.
we won't be back here between now and Sunday.
Right.
get
But
it.
I mean, he can probably enlighten you a little bit more than that probably phone call he had to
We don't get internet up where I'm.
You don't
We
have
don't
one
get,
in
we don't.
Powell?
The Hill Courthouse to speak to.
All right.
Sunday, just driving in our area, we got it.
I guess Brad cleared that up. We'll know more in 2 days.
Lawyers.
Are we ready for, do we have a need to go into executive?
Yes, sir, we do.
For personnel, wasn't it?
We've got two matters for sure that we need to discuss. One is personnel. Y'all, keep in mind, you pull paragraph 4 on your consent agenda.
Yes.
We've got to talk about that, and then you guys got to.
We'll come back to that after
Okay, so that's
executive.
personnel deal. And then, the second item is a quick litigation update. I got prospective and current litigation I got to address. So you've got two matters, that justify going into.
I think Brad
I think you already
had,
got it. You already answered.
you don't have any other information that you could share with us on the flooding, potential flooding?
I talked to Marty Pope yesterday and again this morning right before the meeting, and the biggest difference is they said if we, a 50-mile buffer, if all the rain that you're seeing on Facebook and Louisville and all that was about another 50 miles back this way, it would be really, really bad. They've got up to 15 inches on record from 2 days ago. It should hit Philadelphia tomorrow or the next day. They'll know for sure then how it's gonna impact us here with the Ross Barnett and the Pearl. There's another tranche of rain coming today, hitting the same area. He said as long as it stays where it's at. This morning when I talked to him, he had really kind of calmed down a bit. So I don't feel like it's gonna be as bad as we anticipated it would be. And that's what we were looking at. In 1979, had 19 inches of rain in Lee County.
Yep.
That right in the middle of the Pearl River Basin. This was a little bit to the east. So we may end up in pretty good shape on that. So, and I trust Mr. Moore. He's been the hydrologist for National Weather Service for over 45 years. This dude is sharp. So
Okay.
we're keeping an eye on him.
All right, we,
All right, do we have a motion going to executive session?
I'm gonna ask that question.
Make
Do
a
I-
motion to discuss the need for executive session.
Yes.
Second.
All right, Jay makes a motion.
Second.
I think Daniel got it. Daniel seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor? Well, doing this is,
Investigation personnel going on.
let's discuss the need now.
I make a
All right.
motion to go into executive session for
Okay.
personnel litigation.
All right, Daniel seconds it. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.